Welcome to the regular meeting of the Cape Coral City Council. Today is April 17, 2024. This meeting now comes to order. Please stand for the invocation and pledge allegiance by Councilmember Welsh.
We come here tonight to celebrate the beauty of this city, the beauty of the weather that we have, and the beauty of the people who live here. We celebrate the fact that we have a government that listens to its people, in which we have a voice, in which we can speak and make suggestions. We celebrate tonight a government in which we elect our officials and are heard. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor Gunter.
Here.
Council members Carr.
Here.
Cosden. Here. Hayden.
Here.
Long.
Here.
Shepherd. Here. Steinke.
Here.
Welsh.
Here.
All present.
Thank you. Item 5 is changes to the agenda. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If you wouldn't mind, after the recognitions and achievements, I'd like to add an update on the FEMA National Flood Insurance Policy issue. And if you all don't mind, I'd like to add it preemptively to the next meeting before our May 9th submittal of the information for one last update on the topic.
Okay. Are there any changes to the existing agenda, or do I have a motion to adopt the agenda with the change that the city manager outlined?
Motion to approve. Second.
Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Hayden.
Aye.
Long.
Aye.
Shepherd. Steinke.
Aye.
Welsh.
Aye.
Carr.
Aye.
Cosden.
Aye.
Gunter.
Aye.
8 ayes, motion carried.
Item 6 is recognitions and achievements. 6A is Community Recognitions Award involving Cape Christian Church. Mr. City Manager.
Tonight's Community Recognition Award goes to Cape Christian. Cape Christian has held the presence in our community since 1987 with the initial vision of building a contemporary church in Cape Coral with a non-denominational focus that would reach unchurched people. The church has been blessed with continued growth throughout its history, and currently more than 4,000 people attend weekly worship celebrations. Cape Christian is also home to Fellowship Park and Tony's and Ada's Coffee, a gift to Cape Coral built by families for families and open to the general public. Serve Day is an annual community-wide event held by Cape Christian that provides volunteer opportunities to serve Southwest Florida through practical acts of kindness. Some projects are as simple as picking up trash along the road, and others are as complex as a new construction and building projects. This year, the church gathered 1,500 volunteers to work on 100 different projects in a single day and raised tens and thousands of dollars in charitable donations. I'd like everyone to please enjoy this Serve Day 2024 Recape video that describes just how big of an impact this event has had on our community.
We're going to continue to use our time, talent, treasure, tongue, not just for ourselves, but we want to be a blessing to other people.
Compassion meets the need. I love this. Like, compassion does something.
God's answer to some of the problems of the world is always the church. We get to be the hope of the world.
We're not going to church this weekend. We're going to go be the church.
We say all the time that we exist to serve our city. if we shut down today, would anybody in our city notice or care? When we all do our part, we can really, really make a difference. Amen?
Cape Christian's mission is simple but impactful. Love God and love people, and they take these tenets seriously. It's my profound honor to present this Community Recognition Award to Cape Christian. Cape Coral is blessed to have you in our community. Thank you for Serve Day 2024.
And congratulations, and thank you for everything you do for our community. Okay, the next item on the agenda was the added item at the request of the city manager. It's a FEMA update, and I'll turn it over to the city manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. It's been a busy few weeks relating to FEMA's National Flood Insurance Policy Community Rating System retrograde notification to the city, as well as several other cities in Lee County. I want to give you just the 2-week update. This will not be as lengthy as the last one, where I had to basically lay out the whole chronology of where we're at. This will just be from 2 weeks forward. It's been 2 weeks since our last regular council meeting, when I provided you with a timeline of our response times and notifications to the public with regards to recovery directly after Hurricane Ian through present day. Today, I'd like to give you additional information on our progress as we work towards compliance with FEMA and the reinstatement of our CRS rating to a 5, or to keep our 5. I want to reiterate that the project is to maintain our CRS rating, and it is our top priority within the organization. To ensure this success, I have assembled an operational team consisting of individuals dedicated to conducting thorough research and executing the necessary field work. These team members are working evenings and weekends to take full advantage of the 30 days allotted to us by FEMA. Additionally, we have sought the assistance of both state and federal legislators to guarantee we not only adhere to the compliance standards, but demonstrate our ongoing commitment to compliance. I mentioned during our last meeting in January of 2023, recognizing our need for assistance post-Ian, we submitted a resource request to the Florida Department of Emergency Management for building inspectors or certified floodplain managers to help conduct substantial damage determinations on approximately 1,200 structures. Displayed on the screen is that resource request with specifically that request. As it remains today, still, we have not received those resources, and the request has been closed. Please bring up display item 2. Just this week, Florida Department of Emergency Management attempted to close this request for help without acknowledging the fact that it went unfulfilled. After I expressed my dissatisfaction with this alleged outcome, they offered to, at this time, provide us with a vendor list that could assist us now with our current work. And so what they have done now is they have updated the status of the resource request to indicate vendor list provided, and they have provided us with a list of vendors to perform the work. I fully intend on utilizing these resources along with my team to support our ongoing work on this project, and we're actively working through that list to engage the vendors to assist us on our path to compliance. What that means is we're likely going to be incurring these costs, and they will likely be non-reimbursable because they are after the 6 months that were initially set out by FEMA in the disaster declaration. That doesn't mean that I won't work with you and our lobbyists to see if there's other ways to get appropriations to pay for that. But at this time, we're going to continue on with the work that we said we needed help doing, and we're going to complete that work with now the list of resources that we have. With regards to compliance with the National Flood Insurance Program, during our initial and continued response efforts to recover from Ian, we have utilized FEMA's Substantial Improvement, Substantial Damage Desk Reference. This is a manual that all of our floodplain certified employees utilize in order to maintain compliance with the program. I think it's important to note that we have mentioned this to the FEMA's representatives who met with our staff last Thursday, and they confirmed this is absolutely the reference guide that we should be utilizing to remain compliant. One of the key assertions made by FEMA for alleged non-compliance is we did not perform proactive inspections. Can you please bring up display 3? This is the desk reference, and if you notice on 7.5, in order to do damage assessments for substantial damage determinations, it specifically says there are choices, plural, about how to make those damage determinations. And the first one is, communities can proactively inspect buildings soon after the event and use available information, or they can notify owners of the requirement to get permits and then wait for the property owners to apply for the permits and make substantial damage determinations at that time, following their normal permit review procedures. We pointed out to them that their own manual, section 7.5 on damage assessments for substantial damage determinations, states communities have choices about how to handle making substantial damage determinations. In the city of Cape Coral, we followed number 2. If you remember the last time that I went through the detailed timeline, I provided you a series of letters that we sent to owners. Not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 letters to all of them, indicating in the letter that their property is under the National Flood Insurance Policy Program in the Special Flood Hazard Area, and they have a requirement to come in to get a permit, at which time we would perform the substantial damage assessment and calculations, and which we did. We followed choice 2 post Ian, and when we pointed this out to FEMA representatives, their response to us during that meeting was they are working on changing that section so we no longer have 2 options. They confirmed the option was in place at the time that Hurricane Ian struck, but they said they are changing that and rephrasing it so communities no longer have choices, and they went further to say it's not yet in place and was not in place during our post-Hurricane Ian. So we wanted to make sure very clear that they knew we had options to remain in compliance, and we utilized one of those options, and they acknowledged that. It's important to take away from this information that if we were, here's some quick arithmetic on number 1 as an option. If we were to have Hurricane Ian 2.0 tomorrow, we would need 150 two-man teams of building inspectors or 300 employees just for Cape Coral in order to complete that work within the time frame stated. That doesn't include the resources that Lee County would need, Bonita, Sanibel, Fort Myers Beach, or Fort Myers. In the meeting, I specifically asked FDEM and FEMA if on their list of resources that they're going to be providing us, if they even had 300 resources available just to assist Cape Coral, and the answer was no. And so I went on to say to them, you really need to reconsider your change, because what you're about to do will make it impossible for communities like us in the future on in another incident to be compliant. On April 11th, I, along with the mayor, Lee County, and other affected cities had the opportunity to meet with FEMA Regional 4 Administrator Robert Saman, and I'm pleased to report that that meeting was both positive and constructive. Robert appeared sincere in his desire to work with Cape Coral and aid us in our path to compliance. Can you put up Robert's email? There's a couple of key points in here that gave us some positive light. One of the things that is happening during this 30 days to show FEMA we were compliant is our community and the other affected communities are going through our annual recertification process to remain in the community rating system with our grade of a 5. And so At the same time, we were going to be having to show FEMA what we did was compliant. We were also going to be, those same people were the ones who would have to be doing the annual recertification. In Robert's fourth paragraph, he let us know that the deadline for the community rating system, he is granting each community an additional 90 days so that we can focus on avoiding the retrograde. And I want you, those are key words here, because he made it clear to us that if we are able to give him the information in the finding report, we will be able to avoid retrograde and remain in step 5. One of our key objectives to gain from this meeting was to seek clarification on FEMA's requirements. To this point, FEMA has agreed to maintain an open line of communication with city leadership and to facilitate communication with FEMA. Our hope is that this collaboration will help us address any issues promptly and effectively and help streamline our communications between Cape Coral and FEMA. This ongoing dialogue is crucial in ensuring that we remain on track together. We followed up on this meeting with an email to FEMA 4 Region Administrator to ensure clear communication and documentation of any action items or decision made. These next 22 days are critical for our city staff to stay the course, as well as FEMA's staff. One of the things that we are having a problem with is with the regional administrator, there are many subordinates, and then there are the staff that are assigned to us. That email that was shown to us, that was sent to all of us community leaders in our meeting with our on-site staff from FEMA yesterday, we were made aware that the on-site staff had not even known that that email was sent to us, granting us the extension, or the fact that if we were able to show the documents in the letter that was contained, we would be able to maintain our community rating system and avoid retrograde. So we need to continue to make sure that FEMA, up and down its chain, is working like our staff and the council, along with the mayor, up and down our chain with open dialogue and communication. Because if it's not happening on both sides, we may wind up in the same situation. I want to give you a couple of examples of what we've dealt with these last 2 weeks. We have established a process of determining substantial damage for properties, and it's comprehensive. I'm going to give you a couple of examples of the work completed on a property not associated with any of the properties identified by FEMA in an attempt to give you a picture of just what our work entails. A homeowner reached out to the mayor this week. Her homeowner was located in a special flood hazard area and damaged by Hurricane Ian. The homeowner initially hired a contractor to repair her home. In the email, the homeowner expressed knowledge of FEMA's decision to retrograde our CRS rating, resulting in the loss of the 25% discount under the NFIP. She goes on to express her concerns regarding the slow process she experienced with the city's permitting and inspection processes, and says that while she understands the importance of compliance, the delay in permitting and inspections hindered her progress to rebuild and caused additional stress, and likened it to being hit over and over from the same hurricane. She goes on to request that the process be streamlined. This delay and what it takes to get there proves we were neither allowing unpermitted work, abdicating our responsibility, or being reckless with our enforcement of the 50% rule under the National Flood Insurance Program. I'm going to show you the process she's referring to in her email from our Interim Services Director, Matt. This email outlines the permitting and inspection dates related to this specific address. On April 3rd, the 13th, the contractor applied for a remodel permit. On April 17th, the permit failed because the application was incomplete. On April 26th, paperwork was complete and the permit passed. On June 2nd, the review was rejected after the substantial improvement, substantial damage calculations were performed by the city staff and the contractor was notified this property was subject to the 50% rule. This permit was later voided by the contractor on 7/21 because the 50% rule required demolition. On July 12th, the contractor applied for a full demolition permit. On July 27th, the contractor received a full demolition permit. The contractor completed the demolition in November, and the demolition permit was closed on November 7th. On November 14th, the contractor applied for a new single-family residence permit. The permit failed its initial application on November 20th and again on the 28th. However, on the December 7th, the permit passed. The initial review failed on January 2nd, 2024, but passed on January 27th, and the single-family residence was issued on January 3rd of 2024, and today the construction and inspections is ongoing. All of this, if you notice, started in April. FEMA's field representatives came by in October and November. And in October and in November, if from the timeline, you will see that the demolition was occurring. So the work that FEMA alleged was unpermitted activities, in fact, was a demolition permit that was a direct result of the substantial damage determination that we had done previously on a permit the property owner tried to pull to remodel the home. The detailed information I've just provided to you is the work of our staff post-Ian and independent of FEMA. I want to reiterate that I share this scenario with you to show you that Cape Coral's processes work are thorough and well documented. I offer this explanation to illustrate the thoroughness of our review and the ongoing dedication of our staff in light of the magnitude of the work that they were having to do. I'd like to give you another scenario for one specific property alleged by FEMA as having unpermitted work. Cannot share the address, but I can speak in generalities about the process and the facts regarding the situation. Immediately after posting our notice of violations and notice of hearings on a property, I was contacted by one of you councilmen with questions on why a particular property was flagged. I had to review the list to see if it was on there. I couldn't give you information as to why. But the result of what happened was it was a new construction permit that was on a permit board with a dumpster, and FEMA gave us a photo of the home post-Ian taken on between 10/31 or 11/4 without any notes or backup material. I'm here to tell you that today on January 17th, 2024, just a couple of months after their pictures, a permit was applied to demolish that home, the driveway and the pool. On February 23rd, the demolition was complete, and in February, a permit was applied to build a new single-family residence on that property. So here we have a situation where there was notification to us that there was unpermitted work going on. We responded to that saying that there was no permit in place at the time. There was no work occurring. We had went there to inspect it. And just 5 days after we responded to FEMA, we got a request for a permit to demo that exact structure. On another property also identified by FEMA as having unpermitted work, all we have to do is go on is a photo of the home. We've been requesting from them information to help us in our enforcement activities, and we did get a batch of photos that we have been looking at meticulously to see if we can see stickers in windows, if we can see evidence of a new roof, changes in window patterns, new air conditioners. However, on another property, our records show the property actually has had no work, repairs, or renovations. When we went out to contact this owner, the homeowner of the property is still waiting for their insurance claim check to move forward, and the structure will eventually be demolished once they have money to do that and rebuilt once they receive their insurance funds. So this property is in the exact same condition today as it was on September 29th. I'm providing you with these scenarios to show you that we are working with a lack of information regarding FEMA's assertions. A large amount of the work we are doing is putting a magnifying glass on the fact that we have a lack of supporting documentation, and often our work has ended up proving that the assertions of permitted work were inaccurate or incorrect. Does this mean there was not any unpermitted work? No, but it's certainly not as bad as it has been made out to sound. In fact, in some of our inspections that we're doing regarding these properties, we are finding unpermitted work that was not post-Ian. We are seeing work that was unpermitted, but was done maybe 5 or 6 years ago, and we're still taking action on those properties. By the numbers since we embarked upon our path to compliance on April 9th, here's a list of what we've completed thus far. We've completed 96 elevation certificates, 83 physical site inspections, and posted 207 notice of violations, all related to unpermitted work. Throughout the process, our staff has worked proactively directly after Hurricane Ian from April 8th all the way through April 8th. We approved 214 demolitions since the hurricane. We issued 22 stop work orders, issued over 108,000 permits, and completed over 403 inspections. Just yesterday, we had a phone call with Senator Rick Scott. He offered us his support. He told us he has asked for FEMA to be very specific so local officials can know what to do to comply, and that his goal is for us to know the regulations that we need to know exactly and what we need to do in order to remain compliant. I explained on the discussion to Senator Scott the definition of compliance from FEMA remains unclear, and we have received vague responses to our questions. We have shown FEMA their own policy and how we have never fallen out of compliance. Their allegations are unsupported by documentation or policy. I further explained that we have placed outstanding FOIA requests with FEMA, and the only items we have received are 200 pictures of properties. My main point to the senator was that we want him to know that we seem to be up against an undefined definition of compliance, but we have been referred to many preferences of FEMA staff. So we're asking for, show us why we're not compliant, and we keep getting, we think you should have or could have and might have done this. And those are two different issues at hand with the magnitude of the situation we're in. Senator Scott said his office is taking the situation seriously and advised that he will seek clarification of this in writing. We appreciate the senator's support and candor. Our team continues to work diligently around the clock through the May 9th date with the goal of maintaining our CRS rating and the current discount in place. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the time.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from council? And I know our city manager and staff have been working on this diligently and, at least 12 hours a day throughout the weekend. So I just want to thank you and your staff for stepping up and doing the work necessary to try to meet that 30-day deadline. I know it's a big task at hand, but as I can see, everyone is working hard to make sure we meet that 30-day deadline.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, we'll move on to item 7 on the agenda. Do we have a motion regarding the minutes of the regular meeting on April 3rd, 2024?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 8 is citizens' input time. A maximum of 60 minutes is set for the input of citizens on matters concerning city government, 3 minutes per individual. Please remember to state your name for the record. Remember to address council as a collective body, as not as an individual. Also, I'd like to mention tonight there are a few public hearings, whether they're quasi-judicial or legislative hearings. If you're here to comment on those items, you must wait until those items come forward to provide any input on those specific items. I do know we have one individual here today that has asked for some assistance, so we're going to let that particular individual go first.
Hi, my name is Heather O'Connell. I live at 4511 Southeast 10th Avenue, and I'm very happy I finally got to one of these meetings. I've wanted to be here for a while. I'm sorry I won't be able to stay. I'm very limited physically. I do like to go to JC Park, and some days that means we just pull up in my family's car and I can make a couple of steps to the picnic table, and it's right by the water, so it's lovely. I can't tell you how much I enjoy that, how much it just makes my whole week. When I do want to do something a little bit longer, we have to have my 83-year-old dad take out this huge lift, and it's really heavy. It's a lot of work. But that's what we have to do to get here and anywhere else where I need to go around with my wheelchair. I'm seeing so many ADA issues and so many very scary things for me and this design for the park. The way that you have to go in as a pedestrian, I'm a little worried about that, but as a wheelchair user, I'm very worried about that. I'm right at the level of most people's bumpers, and they're not going to see me. When I go through a parking lot, I am just in so much danger, and I'm aware of it every minute. And I can't imagine knowing that, how you would have this setup for the parking. We've brought up concerns before. My parents are avid boaters. I shouldn't say that. They've been boaters their whole lives. I have been too. We brought up concerns, and the response from a city park employee was, we don't have any liability. Parks are used at your own risk. Well, cautionary tale. I don't care so much about whose liability it is. I care about being safe. I care about getting hurt. I care about the kids that are going to get hurt, the mom that's going to bend over for a second to pick up a toy from her stroller, and somebody's not going to see her. People are going to fall off that dock. We've told you. But you're not liable. Well, I don't care who's liable for what happened to me. I was the PIO for Lee County Library Systems, communications coordinator. I coordinated the reading festival, and I'll tell you what it takes to do a good event. You need to have 3 entrances, one for your VIPs and your entertainment and emergency VIPs, your entertainment and your emergencies, another for your staff and your main vendors, and another for your participants. You have a bottleneck at JC Park. You have so many issues there that are real concerns, but you don't have any liability. We moved there because it was the safest neighborhood, established neighborhood, quiet neighborhood, according to police and realtors. Now nobody can say that, so people can't sell. If you do this to this neighborhood, it sends a message that no neighborhood is safe from development and transformation. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's John Mealy, Southwest. I'm kind of here about the FEMA thing. I look after a house for a snowbird that's in my neighborhood, and she called and said they had a work stop on their red tag on their door. So I went and read it. It says, stop work immediately. Construction does not comply with codes and ordinances. Contact the city of Cape Coral. Then she told me she got a registered letter from the city saying, stop work immediately, and if you don't, you could be subject to a $1,000 fine. You have to appear on May 1st to defend yourself against the violations. And she said, what are the violations? The person she called that was referenced to call said, I don't know. So I asked another person. I got the same I don't know. I went to the city manager's office and talked to the lady there, Liz, who was very, very helpful. Gave me a packet that I'd never seen before. And I read through the packet, and it talks about substantial damage and improvement review. This person had a roof put on their house, but it was a year after Ian, and it wasn't due to damage. It was due to the insurance company saying, change your roof, it's 20 years old. There was no flood, there was no damage inside, no damage to the roof. The insurance company told her to do it. Yet they're telling her that I'm going to represent her, and I found out I could, that she's going to have to drive 900 miles down here, be here on May 1st, to defend herself against violations, but they can't tell her what they are until she arrives on May 1st. It doesn't make much sense to me. And the thing that I seem to have gleaned out of this whole deal, when I read the stop work, it listed code 24-0078, and I looked it up, and it says it was passed, but it's not codified yet, so you can't read it, I guess, because I couldn't find it. She isn't being told what the violation is, being threatened with $1,000 a day, And I'm just there's got to be a whole bunch of snowbirds in this thing that are thinking they're going to have to come down here. So I don't know. Here's the permit applied for a year after Ian and passed and inspected, work done. Not substantial damage, yet she's being told she has to fill out this. My other question would be, and I'm not a lawyer, it might apply to the city attorney for an answer. Page 9 through 11, they're wanting you to fill out all of this stuff, owner's name, this and that, floor elevation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and then how much you spent on it and what it cost. If you do that, it seems to me that some people might be giving up their right against, bringing evidence against themselves. I used to advise people of their rights before asking questions like that. So I don't know what the story is, but if somebody could give me an answer, I'd sure appreciate it so I can tell this lady she doesn't have to come. She didn't violate the law for substantial damage.
Thank you, sir. We'll get staff that will get with you before you leave.
Okay.
Hi, my name is William Ulrich, and I got a few things to say.
April 17th, 2024 council meeting. I have spoken at previous council meetings, expressing my opposition to the city's planned changes to J.C. Park. Others have stood here, expressing opposition to the salary increases or stipends the mayor and city council members gave themselves after eliminating the free citizen input committees. In each case, the response from the mayor and the city council has been to ignore all concerns expressed by citizens. So it should not be surprising that citizens have been circulating referendum petitions demanding the city reverse its plans for J.C. Park and its pay raises. It should also not be surprising that the referendum petitions have little or no chance of succeeding, given that the city of Cape Coral requires signatures from at least 15% of registered voters to accept a referendum petition, even though the state of Florida requires only 8%. Therefore, I am creating a nonpartisan, permanent referendum group with 24 to 30 volunteers managing as many as 2,000 citizens, each of whom is prepared to collect 10 to 30 signatures on referendum petitions whenever our city government refuses to be accountable to voters. This is an effort to protect democracy at the local level, and if it is successful in Cape Coral, cities and towns all across the country can copy what we do. A true democracy cannot exist if those who are elected turn their back on voters once they obtain office. So we are going to change that, first in Cape Coral, then in the rest of America. We are also creating a reality series of videos to show others how we succeeded in Cape Coral, to support the concerns of Cape Coral citizens, and to strengthen the referendum group, which is called Cape Coral Conscience, because it will be the conscience for our city. Thank you, William Ulrich.
Thank you for your time. And it should be fun.
Good evening. I represent Tarpon Point property owners and actually not property, Lake Homes over there. Recently, the city's municipal water authority changed the contractor used to test our backflow valves. I got a notice here dated to me personally, 4/3, April 3rd, telling me I had 30 days basically to come into compliance. We as a community have inspected our backflow valves each and every year for at least 10 years and submitted reports. Our last test was June of last year. Why do 64 of my owners get this letter telling them they're out of compliance and they have to do something within 30 days? Some of these owners aren't even in this country. It's ridiculous what we have to do. Single-family homes do not have to do backflow tests. Why do our homes that have just 4 units have to do backflow tests? It's expensive. We're spending probably $50 to $100 an owner a year. And this new agency that you've hired to do this work is going to charge us $25 just to send in a test report. Why do we have to pay $25 that the test inspector tested and said it's fine? It just doesn't seem fair and reasonable. And not only that, there's new code requirements that says we have to do upgrades. I just don't understand why individual owners have to spend so much annually just to comply with backflows when single-family homes and Publix, the Walmart supermarkets don't have to do that much more than we do. and I'm sure they're more of a danger of a backflow failing than we are. Thank you very much for hearing me.
Could you state your name for the record, sir?
Art Ober, O-B-E-R. I have a letter here from the city.
Yep, we have Mr. Pearson in the back, who's our utilities director, might be able to help you out, or
Thank you,
someone from
sir.
staff.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, City Council members. I also represent Tarpon Point Lake Homes Association. I'm also going to speak about the backflow valve issue. What concerns me is we were told that the biggest issue with the backflow valves is that the only valve there has lead, which needs to be replaced in accordance with EPA rules. It doesn't discuss the additional piping or anything else, just the lead. You can replace those valves very simply and very easily for a nominal cost, maybe about $400 for a copper or a bronze replacement. Currently, Cape Coral is saying you got to pull a permit for that, which is kind of strange because if my water line busts, I don't have to pull a permit to have my water line replaced. So why are we now requiring it? We've never had this issue before with a permit to be pulled. In the past, we have our annual inspection. And our annual inspection currently, folks, is $75 a year. There's $6,000 a year we've paid to comply with all the requirements here. As I said, now they're requiring a permit. If we were to comply with this current permit structure, we're going to be paying $1,000 per unit owner or $4,000 per building, which is $64,000 to comply with this permitting and pipe replacement process when the current pipes we have are working just fine. We've never had an issue with backflow going in to cross-contaminate the city, even during Hurricane Ian. So I think it's a bit ridiculous now to say, excuse me, now in addition to the $6,000 a year paying to comply with our requirement, you're now requiring us to pay $64,000 to further apply. The permitting process is extremely onerous here. Pipes should be replaced with code if they need to be replaced. Currently, they don't need to be replaced. They were in compliance with code when they were put in. So my point is, I don't understand why Cape Coral would not just allow us to just replace the backflow valves as they need replacement to comply with the EPA requirement, which would meet what we need to do. So if someone in the City Council can explain why we're tacking on more and more money, my homeowners aren't too happy now. They got a $5,000 special assessment after Ian, and now I'm going to give them this goodie bag too? I just hope the City Council will prevail with the permit department and put an end to this. It's very onerous. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, all of you. Sally Flash, J.C. Park, as usual. I always find something new to talk about, though. The news press stated this is National Parks Week, with parks, I quote, to be enjoyed for their beauty, their wildlife, their serenity, end of quote. Instead of our current shaded, serene J.C. Park being celebrated during National Parks Week, you are taking J.C. Park and building a food, drink, and music attraction, edged by an unshaded concrete boardwalk along the river. J.C. Park now is a park for the future. When this city is totally built out in housing, businesses, roads, and concrete, we can still have a place of beauty, wildlife, and serenity if you do the right thing. J.C. Park can be the only park left with a river view, much sought after shade, and with handicap accessibility. You've told me your job is so complicated you look to the experts to teach you. Well, we are the experts. We have thoroughly read, many of us have read, the ULI report, the 10-year Cape Coral City Parks Plan. We have spoken to representatives from the Army Corps of Engineers. We've read all their permitting guidelines. We've spoken at length to the Florida EPA rep. We've spoken to a rep from Key West who was instrumental in keeping their pines. We have the park deed, the history of the park, and we know the zoning rules, which of course you can change. We have spoken to naturalists about the environment along the river. From all of this knowledge, we are here to tell you, You are making a big mistake, changing this beloved park into an entertainment venue. Because there is such dissension about this park, I ask that you put this issue on the November ballot to see if people want to make a $12 million expenditure for your park version that so far 10,000 people don't want. The ballot could read, do you want the city of Cape Coral to continue with its J.C. Park plans? Yes or no? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Lori Lehman, and at the last committee meeting of the whole, y'all talked about changing this meeting to 9 a.m. You cited fatigue, wanting to be home with your children. Well, there are a lot of cities in the state of Florida that have 6 p.m. meetings, some of which are Clearwater, Jacksonville, Fort Lauderdale, Marathon, Marco Island, and Lake Mary, just to name a few. But it appears the council doesn't want citizens' input, which is why you want to make it at 9 a.m. The average age in Cape Coral is 45 years old. At 45, people work full-time. They can't come to a 4:30 meeting, or yet, better yet, a 9 a.m. meeting. It needs to go to 6 o'clock. Also, I'm wondering if on J.C. Park, you have acknowledged the fact that with the changes you want to make, are they going to be ADA compliant? You heard from Heather that they're not going to be. Coviello Park, which you have completed, is not ADA compliant. The crushed shell paths that were supposed to be paved paths that you conveniently changed are not ADA compliant. You can't ride a wheelchair over it, a walker, a cane. Mothers can't run strollers over it. This is not right. These are supposed to be parks for the citizens' use, and they're not anymore. Further, I was noticing on the agenda for tonight, 10B1 and 10B2, that you're still issuing permits on car washes and storage facilities. When you declared the moratorium, our understanding was that there would be no more permits issued on those. If the permits had already been issued, well then fine, let them complete what they've already got the permit on. But if there is not a permit on it, why would you then call a moratorium and then turn around and issue more permits? That doesn't make sense. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Tim Swinney. I live in District 1, and I wanted to thank Bill Steinke. I called your office today, or actually yesterday, about a permit issue, and someone did answer the phone and talk with me. So thank you for that. And that person was Cheryl Mikowski. Did a great job getting back and forth to me on email and so forth. And so it was nice to get someone who actually helped me through the process. But my problem is that my letter from my engineer for my new roof permit, which I'm trying to get, did come back, and it was declined because it didn't have a stamp on it, and I think there was one other thing. So I went back to my engineer, got it back the same day, which was yesterday, turned it back in yesterday, and now they're telling me it's going to be 10 to 14 days before someone will review that. And it should be a pretty simple thing to look at the letter and see. Escrow was supposed to close yesterday. I got people with U-Haul truck trying to get into their new home, and we can't get in. So I know it's difficult, and I enjoyed listening to the stuff about FEMA today. I know your jobs are hard, and it's you have lots of stuff going on, but it's hard for us getting through the permit process too. So thank you, though.
Thank you.
John Sullivan, former mayor. Our city website contains approximately 1 year of council meetings and documents. We can't look back to see how council is governed. We can't see how our earned money is being spent. We won't know who acted on behalf except for 1 year. Should this and other deceptive practices continue, the public will see a corrupted organization, not individuals as council members. Fort Myers website includes videos and documents from 2019, Bonita Springs 2015, Port St. Lucie 2019, Northport 2014, Venice 2013, and Sanibel goes all the way back to 1974. Our utility rates, impact fees, and stipends and salaries are determined by using data from other municipalities, some of which have been mentioned. Consultants gather data from other municipalities to generate studies that justify increases in taxes, fees, and other charges. If cybersecurity is a problem, why not retain consultants to bring us into compliance while helping our city clerk? Or is there something council or staff doesn't want us to see? Voters will push back in 2024 and 2026. I intend to use any legal means necessary to defeat any referendum that codifies your illegitimate stipend, no matter how it's framed. Apparently, council doesn't want working people at meetings. Why else would council consider 9 a.m. meetings a draconian move? Why not charge $100 admission? That'll keep the pesky residents away. This appears to be another self-inflicted wound, like the stipend destroying the yacht club in J.C. Park. Council shoots itself in both feet while implying, through rule changes, it's the residents' fault. All I have to say is good luck in November, because you guys are going to need it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kathleen Lopez, Beach Parkway. We have so far not seen the results of your environmental study, noise study, or financial impact on the 800 residential units on Beach Parkway. Have you done one? Have you done any of them? Why do you abhor your citizens and work only for the commercial developer buddies of yours and the restaurateurs? People have been coming to us all week, signing our petitions and saying, we have to save J.C. Park because the city council is destroying every good thing we remember growing up here. They are incensed about the destruction of their yacht club pool, where they had fun with their friends and they learned how to swim. They lament that when this city only had 30,000 people, it had a swimming pool to teach their children how to swim. But now that we have over 200,000 residents, there is no pool for the children to learn to swim in. We live surrounded by water. It seems this city council is taking all the amenities our citizens used to have and removing them so the occasional visitors will have all the perks our exorbitant taxes are providing. Wouldn't an intelligent approach be to explore how the destruction of a beautiful, natural, serene, well-loved and appreciated green space the change would adversely affect its citizens? This new concept will prevent elderly and handicapped visitors from accessing our shore, since the current parking pads will be removed and these people cannot walk across the park. Every day, those parking spots with their perfect view of the river, boats, waves, and cooling breezes are filled with those healthy and handicapped residents eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner on the shore. Many city workers, as well as many construction workers and postal employees, enjoy our shore for their quiet lunchtime. Our fishermen, who daily fish in the mornings during my 7:15 walk, will no longer be able to fish there, and they can't go to the yacht club since our council doesn't think fishermen are important, so they have not rebuilt our pier after almost 2 years. The citizens and the children who follow the Painted Rocks Discovery app will no longer have access to find the rocks in the interesting nooks and crannies of our Australian pines. The people who walk along the shore with their dogs will also be affected. Everything you are doing is damaging our neighborhood, our park, and Cape Coral citizens. So you can take care of the occasional visitor who may not pay our excessive tax.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Francine. Remember last time I couldn't talk twice? Well, I'm talking now. I have wrote it down. Cape Coral is the largest city in Southwest Florida. It has 76,000 acres. Build another park and use the $12 million for that. Leave J.C. Park alone. It is only 11 acres, only measly 11 acres. Just leave it alone. You people are greedy and you don't care how the citizens feel. Also, change the city council meetings to 6 o'clock. If you had a chance, I think more people would come. The reason you want 9 o'clock because you want nobody to come, so you're supposed to inconvenience us and not you. So leave it, put it to 6 o'clock.
Tom Coy. In my speeches and anywhere I can, I have said no to the J.C. Park designs, the yacht club designs. I feel, I'm just saying the same thing everybody's saying, we don't want this. And I've got to give a real tribute to the people who have been doing this petition drive. That's a tremendous effort. That's takes a lot of hours, weeks and weeks, months and months of seeking petitions, signatures. So it's not an easy job. And you know how many people they've collected? Thousands of people. Those are people that are saying no to these things that the council is talking about with J.C. Park. And so I hope they keep fighting whatever way they can to stop what you're doing. And that should be more than enough. All this talk, all their efforts should be more than enough. Darn. I want to get to a point here. The ULI report said that J.C. Park is a wonderful park, and furthermore, it should be a model for other parks. So, you know, I was thinking about how you're demolishing the yacht club, and it dawns on me that after you like take away the ballroom and you take away the Rotino Center, you're left with an area then you think about what J.C. Park is. It's an open space area, and since you're supposed to take J.C. Park and model other parks with it, you would take J.C. Park and put it over where the yacht club is. So what you end up with is a big open space where the ballroom is, where the Rotino Center is. And just think about it, how that's more of a step up in terms of a park which would attract many people. If you see what I'm saying, sort of like, if I may lawfully say, like Lakeshore Drive in Chicago. I mean, you have the beach, and then you have this open space behind it with the various pavilions and picnic tables and shade trees, and you probably still should have that pool back there too. But that would be a really interesting step up in terms of a J.C. Park-like open space place. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anthony Karp, District 1. Mayor, council members, and staff, please take notice that a very large number of your citizens, and that's voting citizens, and snowbirds, do not, and let me repeat myself, do not want J.C. Park redeveloped. Please understand that by your proposed design. We have expressed this opinion over and over again. Okay? And we have given you hundreds of factual reasons why. This park cash issue has been going on for months on end now. We need to have some kind of resolution. Now, please take note that the citizens interviewed have their own ideas for the park that will make everyone happy if implemented. We can provide you with that list of simple, common sense improvements that were provided to us from all of your citizens, and we've interviewed thousands of them, okay? Now, you are welcome on any given weekend, all of you, to join me and all of these people here. We can walk around and you can find out for yourself by interviewing your own citizens. Now, with goodwill, you can regain the respect and trust that you've lost with a lot of your citizens throughout the city. And I'm talking all four corners and the center, all of your districts. Now, I'm going to move on to something else. Since we've been talking about this whole FEMA thing, I hope we have a streamlined plan for the citizens because, you know, we're going to have a pretty large hurricane season. Hopefully, they'll all stay out in the Atlantic Ocean, but I hope we can streamline petition or permits and, you know, really help the citizens a little bit faster and better. I would like to have a new revised hurricane plan for all our citizens so that there's a better coping mechanism. I know in my own neighborhood, we've experienced the two previous hurricanes, and we made a plan and we all worked together because we realize we can't completely rely on everybody else, that it comes down to the individual to do what they have to do, and we did it, and we've grown a lot closer because of that, and we know that a lot of the other parts of the city have too. So let's all work together on everything. Let's take a common sense approach to all these issues, and we need to sit down, and I invite all of you, you know, you can tell me after this, after we're done with this discussion, that I'm willing to sit down with all of you in your office or come to J.C. Park. We don't need an introduction about you. We know all about your background and what you're about. We want you to hear and walk and just be quiet and walk with us. We'll be very amicable. And, you know, this will be a good chance for us to have a good workable team together. Okay? Thank you all.
Thank you.
Hello. Julia Tari, citizen. I spoke at the COW meeting and I asked about the records that were missing at the last council meeting. The answer to my question was you have to just go on and get a FOIA request and you can get anything you want. But those records and videos on Cape TV are not supposed to be removed or changed. Ex-Mayor Sullivan did address that. That was a concern of mine. I did go down after the COW meeting and make a FOIA request for some information on the contracts for some of our workers, and I was told it could take 6 to 8 weeks. And I don't understand why recently, within the last year, everything that you used to just do online and get is being held up. There's something wrong with the system. Either you don't want the people to know, you don't want us to have the information, somebody has to approve it, but you're not getting the information when you ask for a Freedom of Information Act request any longer. Also, I wanted to ask about the CRA. The stipend money was attached to community redevelopment. Does anybody know, because I can't find, when have you had your community redevelopment meetings? When are they held, and has anybody attended them? Because I can't find it on the website. You're taking the money, so at least we should be aware of what's going on in those meetings. It should be a public record to the people. You're taking a lot of money for that. And the town halls, we were told that we were going to have town halls because all the citizens' input groups were removed. You guys were going to handle it, and the information was going to come to the citizens through a town hall. I've been sitting here every week, or every other week, and I haven't seen a town hall yet. Do you have any plans on following through with the town halls, when they are going to be, where they're going to be, and when the people are going to get to come or attend them. Permitting on property, I find, is amazing. I wasn't going to speak on this till today, but there was an ordinance that you couldn't put a dock on vacant land. Well, one of our city council members decided to put a dock on a vacant land to put his boat. With that said, after the permit was approved and the dock was built before the ordinance, they changed the ordinance. I just find it amazing that you can change ordinance to cover your mistakes, but you're putting the people of Cape Coral through hell right now because they are not aware of everything that they should be doing on the permitting. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Come on, sir.
I don't know if I can follow that. I'll do the best I can. Dave Kalish, I've been here a couple times. It's amazing, you know, listening to all the people that are talking here, all the good information, and all the way that they've expressed themselves has been very well done. I'm very impressed with all of them. And it's a shame that we all sit here and we do all of this and it's for naught, okay? Because you guys have made your decisions about what you're gonna do, and it doesn't matter about the people in the city. And whether you believe that or not, I don't care, because that's a fact. You guys, and I'm sure plenty of people will feel the same way that I do, that you guys couldn't care less about us. So now I'll go on with my list. Part of, you know, we heard all that stuff about FEMA and everything that's going on. I mean, I've heard nothing. And one thing I was looking to hear about, and some people did touch on it, was the permitting. The permitting in this city is horrible. What's going on with it? There's nothing, how come there's nothing to do to fix the permitting so people can get their permitting done in a fashion, in a reasonable amount of time to be able to conduct their business the way that they need to? Why doesn't that matter? A census to move the council meeting to the morning, just like everybody else said. It's ridiculous, okay? I've never heard of anywhere, even in other states, they don't do that. But I guess it's more convenient for you guys, and you guys don't really care about any of us, so why would it matter for the working people to have less of an opportunity to get here? It's just you don't care about the public. Council discussed the compensation referendum from Mr. Welsh. I think it was a joke, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. With the compensation referendum with voter okay, it would allow council to set up its own pay. I mean, you kind of see how we reacted to your stupid stipend, okay, which I'm praying is going to come back and kick all you guys. I'm sorry, should I tell you how I really feel? But anyway, to go to try and make your own decisions on how much raise you're going to give yourselves every year, that you're blackmailing the citizens. Mayor Gunther called it ambiguous, that the people probably wouldn't pass it. That was his statement in the paper on that. I thought it was pathetic. I would say thank you for your time, but it ain't worth it.
My name is Patricia Schumacher, District 5, and I don't have a really great hearing, but I seem to have caught on the invocation a reference to thankfulness for, that we're grateful for officials, that we have officials that listen. And, you know, that's been kind of a point of contention with a lot of us because we don't get that sense. But, you know, I will take it at face value. And in trying to understand, maybe it's that you don't understand. I think we've all been talking pretty plainly about these issues, J.C. Park and the stipends, and I don't see where the confusion would be. It's pretty clear. And to that as well, we've been told, it's been said, that there aren't enough of us, that we're really not significant. You know, that's pretty insulting. And we don't pay you to insult us. We pay you to listen to us, to understand, and to follow through with what we have expressed as how we want our city to be represented and to accomplish. So, oh goodness, I lost my notes. All right. I do want to mention about the impact of some of these proposals as it really, people, lives. And a lot of it has to do with the cost of having a roof over your head, home ownership and renters. What you're proposing, we are experiencing an increasing burden from all sides, insurance and taxes. People can't afford, you talk about affordable rents, there are people that won't be able to renew their leases because the landlords, I'm a landlord, I can't lose money on my rent. I am currently trying to hold rent down for my renter, and we have one of our group here, Francie, she can't afford any more rent increases. You've got to understand that unnecessary spending leads to unnecessary taxation, and you have a responsibility to keep things affordable for us. So I'm going to end up with the fact that, you know, you didn't like your pay and you didn't like your hours. Maybe you don't like this job.
Thank you, ma'am.
Maybe you should do something else.
Thank you.
You cannot do anything for us.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak during public comment? Seeing none, public comment is now closed. Is there any council discussion? Councilmember Long.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I guess I'll start. There was a couple individuals that spoke with regards to the records that we've routinely had available to the residents online. I believe the first gentleman that brought it up, we'd already provided a response to him, but Mr. City Manager, has anything changed from that original response, or could you at least explain for those that weren't here or listening the first time why that is that some of those have been pulled?
Has there been any change in?
The only change as of right now is we have been able to post all of the city ordinances online, where before they were taken down. We're working on the resolutions, and after that, the city minutes. The public is free to place a public records request at any time, and we'll redact the results and then provide them.
I understand that, and I appreciate that. I guess my question was, my understanding when it was originally discussed was that they will all be eventually brought back online after, I believe we were mandated by some change in the statute or law to pull those down and do something with those. I don't claim to know what that was, and they were going to be making a return onto the online format.
A redaction of IT security concerns for cybersecurity.
So it's temporarily pulled. It's the same story as last time when we provided that information.
I do have one thing to add. There is a disposition schedule for the videos and audios of 2 years after the approval of the minutes occurs, and we've been working on that as well.
Okay.
Not a permanent retention item.
So just to be clear, it's not a concerted effort by anyone on staff or this council to permanently remove the residents' ability to view those. It's a temporary inconvenience, I would agree, but it's in time will be brought back online.
Yes.
Understood. And then I guess just one last comment. You know, it's difficult to sit up here and have people tell us that we don't listen to them, and then in turn, they continue to provide misinformation about things that they obviously didn't listen about when we spoke, which we did several times. For example, a lot of people here this afternoon brought up the change in times from the 4:30 p.m. to 9 a.m. If they were listening, like they claimed to be last year when we had a discussion about this, one of the gentlemen spoke and said that nobody does that. We've got a list right here that we provided to the public and that we presented to each other that shows that there are many municipalities that do that. In fact, the list that I'm about to read are all municipalities within about 30 or 40 miles that do start at 9 a.m. So we've got Lee County at 9:30 a.m., Charlotte County at 9 a.m., Collier County at 9 a.m., Naples at 8:30 a.m., City of Bonita at 9 a.m., Town of Estero at 9:30 a.m., City of Sanibel 9 a.m., City of Fort Myers Beach 9 a.m. So to those individuals, and in particular the gentleman that said that he doesn't or isn't aware of anyone that does that or any state, I would assume that they didn't look very hard. Thank you.
Councilmember Steinke.
Thank you. I wanted to acknowledge those citizens that took advantage of email submittals. They were received, they were read, and the ones that we received basically were in regard to the car wash and storage issue that's going to come up, and I would tell you that they were about equal in favor or against, and for a variety of reasons. But thank you for the citizens that participated in that way as they could. It appeared to me that Interim Director Matt Grambo, looks like you helped out with the permit issue that we've got there. Thank you for doing that. I too was going to talk about the records request, but it appears that's already been dealt with. And as it relates to town halls, we had our first budget workshop town hall already. The other ones are scheduled, and I think if I could, Ms. City Clerk, those are on the city calendar, I believe, for later in the year.
So there are budget workshops in June. There are 2 of them. There are 3 in August, and there is a town hall that we just spoke about today amongst staff for July 26th.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. And so if there's need any more clarity on when those dates are, those are established. And we have had town halls as it relates to progress on design for both J.C. Park as well as the Yacht Club. Some have been more attended than others, but we are doing all that we can to be out in the community and holding these educational opportunities. And the last statement, as you can see, I'll speak for myself. I do pay attention, I do take notes, I do follow up. So it is not for naught that you would come and speak or that you would send in an email or contact us. It is not for naught, at least as far as I'm concerned. So that's all. Thank you.
Councilmember Shepherd.
Yes, I'm going to respond to the individual that talked about the permitting's horrible. A few years ago, we had the building boom started. We were one of the fastest growing cities, not just in Florida, but in the country. And it was very hard for our permit department to keep up with that, as well as they got hit with COVID, and then they got hit with the hurricane, and they had a lot of obstacles, and I think we worked through them, and I want to commend them because I think they're doing a fantastic job now. Are there still some obstacles? Yes, but I think any organization that takes 3 major hits like that and still overcomes and gets through it and makes things better should be commended. To sit there and say that they're not doing their job to the best of their ability, I disagree. They got 3 big whammies thrown at them, and they've overcame them, and we've came a long way. So I want the people that work in that department to know that I feel that they're doing a good job and they're continuing to do better. When it comes to the time for the council meetings, I've been coming to these meetings for 20 years as a citizen and as an elected official. Over the years, people talked about all different times. I could tell you it's been talked about many times. There is no perfect time. When we sit here at council meetings that start at 4:30 and sometimes go on until real late at night, I bump into citizens that say, I love watching the council meetings, but I had to go to bed. I can't stay up that late. Can you start the council meetings earlier? These other places, Fort Myers, they mention other cities, they start early. I can watch the meeting. So, and then there are people that say the opposite. There are people that say start the meeting later. So my point is, I feel there is no perfect time for a council meeting. I believe that if we start early, there's going to be people that are going to complain that they want it to be in the evening. And I believe that if we make the meeting start even later and go later into the evening, there will be people that complain that they wish it would be during the day. So it's like a no-win. But I was elected to do this job, so I will be here no matter what time is decided for the council meeting. But I want people to understand that I believe personally there is no perfect time, that there are going to be people that are citizens that are going to want morning, and there's going to be people that are citizens that are going to want in the afternoon. So it's a difficult decision to make. So I will probably be voting on just keeping it the way it is. Thank you.
Mr. City Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I actually wanted to provide some facts regarding the permitting situation. Over the last year, we have made tremendous strides in our review timelines and cutting out unnecessary documentation. And I think it's important in light of what was said tonight to share with you the truth and what we actually share with the CCCIA and the Lee Building Industry Association, because those are the people we work with regularly, and they are regularly monitoring our progress, and we have had tremendous progress. So I would like to call Matt up to just kind of go through the numbers.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Matthew Grambo, Interim Development Services Director. Just as the city manager had described a little bit during his comments regarding the FEMA situation, and one of our council members had discussed in his comments, we've had a huge surge in permit activity in the city over the last year and a half. Since Hurricane Ian, the city's issued over 108,000 building permits and conducted over 400,000 inspections. And despite all the challenges associated with hurricane recovery, over the past 12 months, we've reduced our residential review times by 35% and reduced our commercial review times by 45%. We're still always looking at ways to make progress, whether it be through our staffing, through the resources that we apply and the tools that we utilize in our jobs, and constantly looking for process improvements. The city manager, when he took his position, has established some pretty bold goals for overall turnaround times. We're constantly monitoring every month our progress towards meeting those goals. But overall, I could not be more proud of our team in permitting and development services in general. These are some of the hardest working folks in the city, have faced a ton of challenges through the hurricane, through COVID, through software issues. And they still come to work every day and are extremely productive, and could not be more proud of the progress that we've made, and could not be more optimistic on the progress that we'll be seeing over the next couple months. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to item 9A, the consent agenda. I'll now open the consent agenda for council to pull any items for discussion, or I'll entertain a motion for the consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Good. Councilmember Long?
Sorry, yeah, I did want to pull it, but I'm just trying to figure out what the actual number is. It's the design bid approval for, Mike, help me out here, for the football field?
It's A2 Resolution 10224.
That one.
Number 2, Resolution 10224.
I believe that's what he
The
said.
design for Oasis?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
You want to pull that particular item, and I'll ask the motion maker if he would like to change his
Yeah,
motion.
motion to approve the remaining items.
I'll amend my second.
Okay. All right. Any discussion on the remaining items before we have a discussion on Resolution 10224? Seeing none, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Hayden?
Aye.
Long?
Aye.
Shepherd?
Aye.
Steinke?
Aye.
Welsh?
Aye.
Carr?
Aye.
Poston?
Aye.
Gunter?
Aye.
8 ayes, motion carried.
Okay, Councilmember Long, we'll give you the floor for Resolution 10224 since you pulled it.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, just real quickly, I don't have a particular issue with it. In fact, it's concerning a project that I am in full support of. I just wanted to kind of bring it to you guys' attention, maybe for a little discussion about the order in which we're going to do these things. So this, again, concerns the bid and design, I believe, for the football field at Oasis High, which we've discussed about, and I think to some degree have budgeted for in the past. So as you know how these things work, the design is one of the initial steps, and so in this case, it's upwards of, I think, $300,000. Having said that, I know we've also had discussions recently about how that might work as far as whether the city builds it, who's going to be responsible for the priority use agreements, how it works if the city funds it with regards to how much, as far as it's going to be taxpayer funded, how much of the use is going to be available to and at what times for the citizens versus the school. We, if you recall, we're going to have, and still I think plan to have a discussion, a joint meeting, so to speak, with the Charter School Governing Board about that. And so with that being said, in addition to the fact that just recently at the COW, I believe we discussed some new funds as far as capital improvements that may be available to the school. I think there's a lot of things that we don't know about how we're going to proceed that, that I would be more comfortable in waiting to figure out what we do, if anything, about whether that project is likely to come to fruition or not before we throw $300,000 into the design while still having to move forward with those discussions. So just something to consider as we move forward and approve this is that the last discussion that this council had, it was still up in the air as far as how likely it was able to be moving forward with regards to the fact that if we funded it as a city, it had to be available to the residents versus the school's likely desire to have a significant amount of the time for before and after school activities, et cetera. So I don't know what the rest of this board feels about moving forward with it, but I personally would prefer that we wait until we have those discussions before we throw a couple $100,000 at a design that we're not entirely sure is going to come to fruition if we can't figure out the logistics. And to be clear, again, I do support moving forward with the ball field, but I'd be more comfortable waiting until we have that solidly set forth before we put any money towards it. Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. City Manager? Do you have any comments as far as staff's position?
Well, we were waiting on holding the joint meeting with the Charter School Governing Board until we had the design consultant on hand so that they could participate in the discussion and understand, depending on who is going to be owning, operating, maintaining, and funding this, you know, where to get the input on what's going to be designed and what's going to be there. I suppose if the will of the council is that you don't want to engage this contract until you have that discussion, we can make that video and the minutes of that meeting available to them. But that is the intent of why we have not had that joint meeting prior to the engagement. And I did share that with Councilmember Long.
Yeah, I think the question here, I know all along during these discussions with this particular project, this was a community sports athletic field. So I think the question that we need to ask ourselves, is that still the project? I heard the reference that Councilmember Long had made reference, it's going to be a football field. I thought it was more than just that. But if that's the direction that council wants to go in, it's only going to be a football field. It's only going to be utilized by Oasis High School and not a community sports athletic field. To me, that's two totally different projects. So I thought we already had these discussions. And even though I know there's some other funding mechanisms that are available now that maybe weren't available during our conversation previously, I think the million-dollar question here is this a football field for Oasis High School, or is it a community athletic field? If it's a community athletic field, I'm comfortable moving forward. If it's not going to be, and it's only going to be utilized by Oasis High School and paid for by Oasis High School, then that's a different project. So I think that, for me, that's the question that needs to be answered. Councilmember Cosner.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, for me, it is still a community amenity, but my understanding was that we can approve this tonight and then have that meeting with the charter school board and then go to design. Is that right? That's what I understood, Mr. City Manager.
Yeah, this is just the engagement to bring the firm on. Design will not start prior to that meeting.
Okay.
That meeting is going to be important for the design professional to understand the programming and whether or not it is going to be geared principally towards the school or principally towards the community and gauging the priorities. So that it's important that you know, the design professional takes input from, you know, the owner always in understanding what are we trying to deliver, and then it's their job to make sure that they design an acceptable facility to meet the goals of what we're trying to accomplish. And so, you know, the discussion here is what is the goal that we're trying to accomplish. And so, you know, fundamentally, as we were with the cow, you are still in that discussion mode. But at the end of the day, we're still going to need a design professional regardless. So we can wait, or we can engage them, have them participate in the discussion. Either way, we're going to have to engage somebody.
Would there be a benefit to wait?
I don't see a benefit for the wait, which is why we advance bringing it forward to here. I mean, to us, having the design professional actively engaged in the discussion with the end users is important. I mean, they're going to need that input. So having them there is important versus saying, here's a video and a tape of what was discussed.
Thank you.
Councilmember Hayden.
Yeah, I think it's difficult to bring something forward when there's still a lot of confusion on exactly what this facility is. And I said this before, as we were confused at the time, and we still seem to be confused on what this is. Obviously, it's more than a football field. It includes soccer, it includes track, it includes lacrosse. You know, there's other benefits to this. But I said it at the time that first priority, to me, needs to go to the Oasis School. And then those times that are still available for the public to use, whether it's in the summer, late evenings, whatever, then it's available to the community. But I think when we're in a position where we're still not sure what it is, how it's going to be used or whatever, to bring anything forward right now, I think the prudent thing to do is to wait, have the discussion with the school board, and then determine how we're going to move forward from there. But you know, I think, and Councilmember Long, I'm glad you pulled the item. I don't think until we are all certain about the uses for these particular fields, I don't think it makes a lot of sense to move forward with anything right now. Thanks.
Councilmember Steinke.
I would agree with a piece of that with Councilmember Hayden, although the part that I think makes sense is that with the thought that we want to serve the community with athletic facility for all of those other activities that he spoke of other than Oasis football. I think engaging the designer allows us to sit down with a conversation around how do we accomplish this for both the community involvement and all those activities that the entire community can engage in, as well as providing security for the Oasis football equipment. So I think having the design consultant on board to hear the needs of all and how do we supply all of those needs, how will the design accommodate this the best that we can to support the football efforts of Oasis, as well as meet the needs of the community. I know we talked about how much trampling, if you would, turf can take, and so how frequently can it be used. And so a lot of those questions will be able to be answered by the design firm as we work with that, and they would be bringing those issues up. Well, if you do this, then you won't be able to do that, and it will help with decision making around how to do that. So I see the design firm as a consultant in the process of making sure that we can make it as accessible to as many citizens as we possibly can. So I would be in favor of engaging the consultant so that we can have a lot of the questions answered that we need to have answered to make it a multi-use facility for a variety of the needs that we have for our community. So that's where I stand.
Councilmember Law.
Yeah, thanks. Just to clarify, I think when I said football fields, it was shorthand, although when we got a presentation back in June for the summer retreat, they showed apparently what was a brief overview of the project. And so they're talking about a potential project expenditure of $9 million. And what I'm looking at here is essentially a football field. It's got concession areas, locker rooms, field lighting, necessary parking, storage facility, concession stands, scoreboards. So when I say that, sure, there could be ancillary components to it in other fields. I don't see that being a large component. The significant amount of funds I can promise you is going to be expended towards the football field, which of course was precipitated upon the idea that the school needed one. So with that being said, and again, this is all based on the comments that were said by a few of you at the last meeting that we talked about this, and the mayor just reiterated some of his concerns. If the city manager said, well, we need this anyways. Well, I'm not certain that we do need a design consultant anyways if we can't come to terms with the fact that if we're not willing to spend $9 million and have the school have a majority of that time, then we don't need it, because there will not be any construction of that field, and therefore no design necessary. So $300,000 seems like a drop in the bucket, but when we continually make these decisions month over month over month, that amounts to a significant amount of money, and I'd hate to waste it if we can't, at the forefront of this, figure out logistically how we're going to sort out one of the main issues that I thought we already brought to the forefront and said we needed to have a joint meeting regarding. So that'll be the last I say about it. Thank you.
Yeah, I think, I think we need to find out and make a decision as a council. Is it a community park? Is it going to be a Oasis football field? Or is it going to be a combination of both? For me, the $297,000 coming out of the general fund is for a community park. Some of the things that weren't mentioned here tonight that we all are aware of a new funding mechanism for the charter school, where they got $900,000 this year, and they're going to get $13 million over the next 5 years. So if this is going to be a Oasis football field, they can pay for it. The funding's there. So if it's going to be a park that's going to be utilized for the community as well, and we partner with the Oasis High School, I'm all about that. But if it's only going to be utilized for the Oasis High School, there's a funding mechanism that we are all aware of. Let them build it, operate it, maintain it. So I think in light of that, it sounds like we need some more discussion. I'm in favor of continuing it for now. I think this council has to make the decision, first and foremost, is it an Oasis High School facility, or is it a community facility, or is it a combination of both, where maybe we can partner with the Oasis High School and get a little bit of both? So that's kind of where I'm standing. So maybe it is better to just hold off. Let's answer the questions first before we use taxpayer dollars for $300,000 and we don't know whose park it is or how we're going to operate it. So it almost sounds like we might be putting the cart before the horse, since some of these other information, we just found out about this funding mechanism in the last couple of weeks. So, in light of the conversation that we had months ago, we didn't have any knowledge of that. So since we have some additional information, there could be a different approach. Maybe they do their own thing and we still build, because there is a need for more athletic fields in the city. Maybe we look elsewhere for an additional facility. I don't know what the answer is, until we have that discussion. So that would be my recommendation. Mr. City Manager.
I just need to clarify a couple of things. I want to make sure that my recommendation of bringing the firm on, it is based in the assumption that we're building this field. What I was saying is I recommend bringing the consultant on board while you all figure out the funding mechanisms and the ownership and operations. If there was ever discussions that this park is not going to be built, then I cannot recommend to you spending the money on design, and I would not. But in our asset management plan and the funding that we set aside this year in the budget to perform the design, the entire underpinning of that is that we're moving forward building this. I have always been under the impression that the discussions you all are having is how is the school and how is the city as a governmental entity going to fund it and split the cost of funding it. To me, those are downstream items, not whether or not we need a design professional. So I apologize if I was unclear in how I was making that recommendation.
Councilmember Steinke.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. This 297, as I read it in the resolution, it's a not to exceed amount. Is that correct?
Yes, so the way that we structure our contracts for professional services, they are an actual as incurred hourly rate with a not to exceed number. So if the work that is anticipated to bring this design to a deliverable and permit it does not entail all the hours that we're expecting it to, then the invoices would not reflect that, and we would not actually spend the entire $297.
So for instance, if we were to have a meeting, if we were to engage, have a meeting with the Charter Governing Board, with our city representatives and the designer, and in that initial meeting find out that, hey, there's no way you can do this combined, we could be done at that point.
Or we could change the scope and take stuff out of it, and then that would also lower the cost. And to me, that's why I think it's important that the design consultant is part of the discussion. The things that we're going to be discussing on how to make this work together, you hit on one of the key factors. Right? If this park is open to the public, there is going to have to be additional security measures around the times when the public has access to them to secure this, to keep the school secure. If it's not, or if only a portion is, and depending on where that goes, then there's a whole different design. It's just one fence around the entire property. The restrooms, whether they're available to the students that are during the day outside, or if they're just for the people in the park. So that'll adjust access. There's a lot of design elements that are going to go into what we need to accomplish, and so that's why I feel it's important to have them be part of the discussion and not trying to catch up.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, can I make a motion to continue this? How would we do that as far as to a date certain, or do we just wait until we have the meeting that I think we need to have regarding the specifics of?
Yeah, if you continue this, then and I understand then that the direction is to immediately set up the joint meeting with the school board. We'll do that.
Sure, so that would be included in the motion.
Mr. City Attorney.
Yes, that would be a motion to continue this agenda item until such time that a joint meeting is held, and then it can be brought back by the city manager.
At the successive
unfinished
meeting.
business.
Understood. Can we incorporate that then into the motion, Madam City Clerk?
Yes.
Thank you.
Second.
Is there a second for that motion?
Second.
Okay. Any other discussion? Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Hayden.
Aye.
Long.
Aye.
Shepherd.
Aye.
Steinke.
Aye.
Welsh.
Aye.
Parr.
Aye.
Costin.
Aye.
Gunter.
Aye.
8 ayes, motion carried.
Okay, we'll move on to next item on the agenda. We have appointments. We don't have any listed. We do not have any unfinished business or follow-up items for council. Council have any follow-up items? Okay, seeing none. D1 is new business. There's none listed. E is personnel actions, none listed. Petitions to council, none. Follow-up items for city management, none listed. Mr. City Manager.
I have none, thank you.
All right, item 10 is ordinance and resolutions. 10A is public hearings, quasi judicial hearings, first of which is Resolution 93-24. Madam City Clerk, please read title.
Resolution 93-24, a resolution providing for the vacation of plat for a portion of the Cocoa Court right-of-way and all underlying easements located between Lot 23, Block 150, Cape Coral, Unit 4, Part 2, and Lots 24, 25, and 26, Block 150, Unit 4, Part 2. Providing for the vacation of plat for platted easements lying in Lots 24, 25, and 26, Block 150, Unit 4, Part 2. Providing for the vacation of plat for platted easements lying in Lot 23, Block 150, Cape Coral, Unit 4, Part 2. Providing for the vacation of plat for a portion of the Coral Canal right-of-way and underlying easements adjacent to Lots 27 and 28, Block 150, Cape Coral, Unit 4, Part 2. Providing for the vacation of plat for platted easements lying in Lots 27 and 28, Block 150, Cape Coral, Unit 4, Part 2. Providing for the vacation of plat for a portion of the Cocoa Canal and underlying easements adjacent to Lots 21, 22, and 23, Block 150, Cape Coral, Unit 4, Part 2. Providing for the vacation of plat for platted easements lying in lots 21, 22, and 23, Block 150, Cape Coral, Unit 4, Part 2. Property located at 5348, 5354, and 5358 Cocoa Court, providing an effective date.
Mr. City Attorney?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Because this is a quasi-judicial proceeding, at this point in time would be the time where any council member would provide if there were any ex parte communications as required under our city code.
Thank you. Any ex parte communications? Okay, this is a quasi-judicial hearing. Anyone wishing to speak or provide testimony must be sworn in.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Turn it over to staff.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Justin Heller, Senior Planner with the Cape Coral Planning Division. This is a vacation of plat request brought by Steve and Irene Parker, the owners of 5354 Cocoa Court, 5348 Cocoa Court, and 5358 Cocoa Court. For the street right-of-way between 5354 and 5348 Cocoa Court, they are requesting the following: to vacate 3,022 square feet of right-of-way and underlying easements. They're requesting to vacate 471 square feet of platted easements in lots 24 through 26, and 470 square feet of platted easements in lot 23. For the canal right-of-way at the rear of 5358 Cocoa Court, they're requesting to vacate 376 square feet of canal right-of-way and underlying easements adjacent to lots 27 and 28, and 498 square feet of platted easements in lots 27 and 28. For the canal right-of-way at 5348 Cocoa Court, they're requesting to vacate 292 square feet of canal right-of-way and underlying easements adjacent to lots 21 through 23, and 678 square feet of platted easements in lots 21 through 23. Some background: all three properties are adjacent and under common ownership. The properties are located near the intersection of Cocoa and Coral Canals. Two of the sites, 5348 and 5354 Cocoa Court, are improved with single-family homes. All properties have single-family R1 residential zoning with a future land use classification of single-family. The owners are requesting to vacate a portion of street right-of-way between their two properties at 5354 and 5348 Cocoa Court. Additionally, they are requesting to vacate small strips of unexcavated canal right-of-way at the rear of 5358 Cocoa Court and 5354 Cocoa Court. All right, so here's a overview aerial just showing the three properties subject to this vacation request in the surrounding area. Here we have a zoomed in aerial. The areas boxed out in red there are the three requested vacations. And here we have a sketch of the street right-of-way to be vacated, a sketch of the right-of-way, canal right-of-way at 5358 Cocoa Court, as well as the canal right-of-way at 5348 Cocoa Court. So we analyze this under section 3.4.5b. We find the right-of-way vacations will not eliminate any access to any property. The platted easements requested to be vacated are not needed because the city will retain new 6-foot wide perimeter easements around each expanded site. Any utilities found or damaged in the vacated areas shall be relocated and repaired at the applicant's expense. All three utility providers have provided letters of no objection to the requested vacations, and these vacations will not impede the ability of vehicles, including boats, to turn around and exit the area. And approval of these vacations will not result in the closure or partial closure of any street or canal. The Cape Coral Planning staff is recommending approval of the requested vacations with conditions, and the hearing examiner also recommended approval with conditions outlined in the HECS recommendation. And that is all I have for you tonight, and I'll stand by if you have any questions for me.
Thank you. Is there any testimony from the applicant? I don't believe I've seen the applicant here. Is the applicant here? You're here, sir? Any testimony that you want to provide? No? Okay. All right, I'll now open public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on Resolution 93-24, please come forward. Seeing none, public hearing is now closed. Do I have a motion regarding Resolution 93-24?
Motion to approve. Second.
Is there any council discussion? Seeing none, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Hayden.
Aye.
Long. Shepherd. Steinke.
Aye.
Welsh.
Aye.
Har.
Aye.
Cosden.
Aye.
Gunter.
Aye.
7 ayes, motion carried.
Thank you. Since we have a long list of legislative public hearings before we get into that, why don't we take a 10-minute break, come back here at 6:31? Okay, I'd like to call the meeting back to order. We'll move on to item 10B, legislative public hearings. First of which is ordinance 15-24. Madam City Clerk, please read the title.
Ordinance 15-24, an ordinance of the City of Cape Coral, Florida, relating to a moratorium on the acceptance of applications for and the issuance of permits for development of self-storage facilities within all zoning districts in the City of Cape Coral, providing for exemptions, providing for the duration of the moratorium and method of processing applications and permits during, after, or prior to the effective date of the moratorium, providing a procedure to determine vested rights, appeals, and modification to vested development, providing for exhaustion of administrative remedies, providing for severability and an effective date.
Thank you. I'll turn it over to staff.
Good evening, Mayor, Council members. For the record, Amy Yearsley with the City Planning Division. This is the first of two ordinances this evening regarding moratoriums. This particular moratorium deals with self-storage facilities. Staff presented at the last public hearing, it presented a presentation. That presentation remains unchanged, and we are not going to repeat it this evening, but I am available for any questions.
Thank you very much. I'll now open up the second and final public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on ordinance 15-24, please come forward. Just a reminder, there is a 3-minute clock that we'll be utilizing. And I believe it's here in front of me. You can keep an eye on the time while you're speaking.
Yes, sir. Good evening. My name is Mark Morris. I am a commercial broker and real estate advisor with VIP Realty Group here in Southwest Florida. I'm a native of Fort Myers. I don't live in the Cape, but I have been doing business in the Cape for well over 3 decades now. I represent Miller Valentine. They are the purchaser and developer, potentially, of a property on Burnt Store Road and Embers Parkway. If you all will indulge me, if you can, and look up on your phones or your iPads, millervalentine.com. 2 weeks ago, I spoke to this group and I offered advice. My apologies, that y'all should not ignore the free market scenarios that exist here. Y'all are looking at a survey that says that you're overbuilt in self-storage. My client, as you will see from their website, is well established, they're well funded. They are a national developer. They also own property at 6 Burnt Store Road in this same parcel. They purchased 2 lots in order to make the site plan work for them. This contract was put together on August 9th of 2022, about a month and a half before Ian came along and put a ripple in everything. My client has been very patient. They worked through every single obstacle that exists. You all are trying and begging for national developers to come in here and build commercial products. As you'll see from that website, they're not just self-storage builders. Yes, they do build self-storage. They also build medical, office, retail, multifamily, and a multitude of other developments, all of which Cape needs. I cannot think of another strip shopping center on Burnt Store Road that will be worth more than $12 million. They're prepared to put that investment into the city of Cape Coral, and I advise you all to be careful with what you do and the signal that you send to the national developers. This application has been in process. You all have accepted the application. We don't have our permits yet, and we're in the process of doing that and prepared to go to permit. So I advise you, the signal that you're sending to national developers right now with this potential moratorium could be devastating. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Excuse me one moment, Mayor and Council. Before you start my 3 minutes, please, you had it stated up there that it's ordinance 16-24. We don't want this to go void. It's ordinance 15-24. Thank you.
Yep. Ordinance 1524.
It's please, I don't want my time started.
We'll start.
It's
we'll start
supposed
it
to be 15-24 instead of 16. Thank
Give you
you.
3 minutes.
Okay. For the record, my name is Hal Arkin. I've been a resident of City of Cape Coral for 56 years. I have devoted my life and career for 46 as a commercial broker to bring local, national, international businesses here instead of Fort Myers on this side of the river. In August of 2022, MVO has already had pre-application meetings with the staff before we went into contract in October of 22. An SDP, Site Development Plan 22, which means the year 22, was -000136. It was paid for and signed by the city and the developer December 2nd, 2022. My primary question, without beating the bush, is that we have been in process now for close to 2 years. Are we exempt from this proposed moratorium? I would like to have an answer to that before I leave this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hit him in the nuts.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Joe Mazurkos, President, BJM Consulting, here on behalf of many, many property owners that I happen to represent, most for non-residential development, specifically tonight, all for non-residential development. I want to look at ordinance 15-24 specifically and deal with your whereases, because I find major faults in many of your whereases. The fourth whereas says it has been estimated there exists 1,500,000 square foot of storage in a city, and there's an additional 1.6 million in permitting process or under construction. You all know that everything gets permitted, doesn't get built, right? You aware of that fact? It's a reality. Whereas number 5, it says that you need 5 to 10 feet per capita. Is that in Florida? What's the mix of single family and multifamily to develop that 5 or 10 foot? Because I can assure you the number of new sites for self-storage went up exponentially when you started building massive multifamily units in the city. Multifamily units need 2 things specifically: some place to store their stuff and some place to wash their car. It's interesting that you're wanting to kill both of those things now. Whereas number 7, it says the City Land Development Code is determined to require additional study. You already did this once. Did you not do this study last time, or are you lying to us this time? Number 8, determine the changes in Land Development Code that may be proposed pursuant to the study of city staff and self-storage. Once again, you should have already done that study. You've already done this once. You didn't do it right last time, or you're lying to us this time. Whereas number 14, Florida Legislature enacted Senate Bill 2050, codified in Chapter 2023-304, Law of Florida. Goes on adopting a moratorium on construction, reconstruction, or redevelopment of any property damaged by the hurricane. Construction, that's new development. I assure you, I was a lobbyist for the city of Cape Coral for 10 years, and I was a personal lobbyist for 30 years since. I can tell you what the Florida Legislature meant. They meant the community, not just develop lots. The state of Florida Legislature developed this for one reason: to protect the property rights, to prevent local governments from the ability to do regulatory takings in the name of hurricanes. That's wrong. You can't take people's property rights. You're not dealing with quarter-acre lots in mom and pops. You're dealing with national and international property owners, companies, and developers who have their own legal firms. This is bad legislation on a public policy level. It's bad legislation legally. I ask you to deny it.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Kevin Besser, Director of Public Policy for the Royal Palm Coast Realtor Association. I was here 2 weeks ago to discuss private property rights with you all, and I'm here to do it again tonight. These property owners, it doesn't matter if they're building a storage facility, a Chick-fil-A, a Target, or a single-family home, they have private property rights. A moratorium violates those private property rights. I have to echo Joe's comments. You guys have already done this moratorium. You were supposed to do a study. I don't know where that study, where the information from that study has gone or where it's gone to. I understand the city's intents. However, you've already done this. It didn't work the first time. I don't see it working the second time. And we ask that you please allow these property owners to have their private property rights and build what they see fit on commercial spots that are zoned commercial. Thanks.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Donna Germain. I'm the President and CEO of the Chamber of Commerce of Cape Coral. I'm going to read some excerpts from a position paper that was sent to you last week in regards to the Chamber's position on this. The Chamber of Commerce of Cape Coral opposes Ordinance 1524, and this is also going to carry over into 1624 for the car wash moratorium. The Chamber of Commerce of Cape Coral is a champion for business and an advocate for community within the city of Cape Coral and believes it's our responsibility to oppose issues that create a negative impact on the private property rights of the business community and its right to a free market. The Chamber also recognizes and supports the Burt Harris Act. Florida is a state that provides relief to private landowners when a law, regulation, or ordinance inordinately burdens, restricts, or limits private property without amounting or taking under the U.S. Constitution. The state of Florida enacted the Burt J. Harris Jr. Private Property Rights Protection Act in 1995, which provides a specific process for landowners to seek relief when their property is unfairly affected by government action. As stated in the Chamber of Commerce of Cape Coral Public Policy Statement adopted by our Board of Directors, the Chamber supports the following: a free market where the laws of supply and demand provide the sole basis for the economic system without government intervention. We support economic development in attracting and retaining businesses to Cape Coral. We support the role of local government to create a favorable business climate and pledge our support for other economic development organizations to coordinate successful public-private economic development efforts. We oppose federal, state, county, and city statute regulations and policies that unnecessarily restrict the free exercise of private property rights. No government body should use its regulatory powers to take away the rights of private property owners. We understand that regulatory agencies may limit private property rights regarding the environment, endangered species, conservation, and historic preservation. However, we oppose the frequent attempts to impose additional onerous and duplicative restrictions. We also recognized Senate Bill 250, which was stated earlier in regards to a county or municipality located entirely or partially within 100 miles of where Hurricane Ian or Hurricane Nicole made landfall, and that where you cannot adopt any moratorium on construction, reconstruction, or redevelopment on any property damaged by Hurricane Ian, Nicole, or propose or adopt more restrictive or burdensome amendments to his comprehensive plan. The Chamber of Commerce of Cape Coral believes it is our responsibility as the largest organization in Cape Coral to work collectively and responsibly with our city government to find the best solution or action for our residents and business owners.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak during public hearing, please come forward. Seeing none, public hearing's now closed. Is there a motion regarding ordinance 15-24?
Mayor, I make a motion to deny ordinance 15-24.
Is there a second?
Second.
I'm sorry, did I hear a second?
Second.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. I'll open up for any discussion. Councilmember Carr.
Yes, Mayor, I'm looking at these two ordinances that we're getting ready to discuss separately. With this particular one, I had some of the similar concerns that have been raised here this evening, and I have not been able to overcome those obstacles in my own for the decision-making of this ordinance. It's not an easy decision to make for me, but I felt that this was the right one at this time. The fact that we did do this in the past without the results that we intended, albeit maybe affected by Senate Bill 250, that was a big part of it. Anyway, that's my motion and the reasons for it.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Steinke.
This is a tough one for me. If I could, Mr. City Manager, there's talk of the previous moratorium and studies being done. As I remember it, because of Senate Bill 250, it basically cut that off with only about 6 weeks. Can you clarify that a little bit?
Yeah, I'm going to ask City Attorney Boxner to discuss it, but there was a pause.
It's shortly after SB 250 was enacted, shortly before SB 250 is when this really was an issue. But because of it and because of what was discovered subsequently by the Florida legislature, it ultimately altered our position regarding moving forward with this matter.
Okay. So earlier in the meeting, I mentioned email e-comments for tonight, as well as other conversations I've been in with other citizens, and certainly there's two sides of the equation. We get plenty of input saying that you got to stop all these car washes and storage units. On the other hand, I believe in free market, and I absolutely am a proponent of property rights. We're also in a position where we sit, where we have to do the best we can with what was given and what was promised 60 years ago, with where things would be needed, what was best for everyone prior to 60 years ago and past us, and knowing where we are today. So where we need things and what's best for the city as the city has developed certainly has to be our concern as well. One of the questions I needed to have answered in my decision making, as Councilmember Carr has mentioned, I've been struggling with it as well, is do we need them or don't we need them? And it relates to both storage units and with car washes. The more multifamily that we have in our city, the smaller the units are that people are moving into from much larger units up north. They need places to store things. Those homes in which they are going to live don't allow car washes. They don't allow you to wash your car there. So people have to have somewhere to wash their car. And even if they could wash their car there, you put 300 or 400 people there washing their cars, that's one-use water. The modern car washes today recycle their water, and so there's certainly a water savings to have a commercial facility to wash your car in. So I see both. One of the things for me that made a difference for me in this ordinance is that it's truly defined as a pause. I'm told that moratorium is the only word that you can use for legal purposes, but when you look at the extent of the length of time of the ordinance, it's given a date certain, but it also says that upon adoption of an ordinance revising the land development code would be a date that it would end as well. So if this was actually addressed in the study done as we were going to do prior to 250 coming into play and us stopping the process of doing that, then we would have that already. But I think that, you know, as we look at this, to take a look at where these facilities should be and what they should look like where they're placed for the people that live around them, for the people that come in and out of our town, the roads in which they are on, what they look like from the road, potentially some health and safety matters that are involved. Sometimes you got to think before you act, and so this pause is stop for a moment and let's see where we are and where they should be. So that's my input, that I would share before we all vote, is that I'm conflicted as well on it. Like I said, one part of me says let the free market go. If they open up the storage facility and it goes belly up, hey, shame on them. They shouldn't have put it there. And then we got this vacant building sitting there, potentially providing slum and blight to a neighborhood. Same thing with a car wash. Well, if there's no cars going through there, then they'll go out of business and no problem. And then we have an old car wash just sitting there, as we have seen in our city, just sitting alongside the road. And so, with the right to do what one wants with their property, I'm a full proponent of that. But you can't do what you want to your property to your neighbor's detriment as well. So it's tough. So the thing that makes it okay with me, and I would only be okay with it, and I haven't voted yet. But the thing that would make it okay with me is the fact that it is a pause. It's defined as a pause in C sub 1 as it relates to the ending date of the pause. And it also does not hurt anyone that's currently in the process, and that is listed under the exceptions. So for anyone that wanted to use their property up until tonight for a car wash or for a storage unit, they could have been in permitting. And that's what the exception basically says. And you can read it word for word to know whether the exception is applicable to you or not. So anyone currently involved, they should be okay based on what's written. And the intent of this ordinance is certainly listed with the thought that it will end as soon as we have reasonable evidence of where things should be and what they should look like where they are. And I appreciate you listening to me. That's it.
Thank you, Councilmember Shepherd.
Yeah, this is a tough one. I've changed my mind multiple times. I'm not a fan of more car washes. I'm not a fan of more storage facilities, but I'm also not an expert on knowing the needs. When I hear people say with all these apartments, they're going to need a place to store their things, then I get it. I understand. What really is troubling to me is the amount of commercial property that we have left in our city and the important needs that we need for our city. That's what I have a problem with. Even if there was a study that said we need more storage facility, there might be other things we need that are more important. And that's what scares me, the amount of commercial property that's left and the needs of our citizens, because I feel it's my job to protect the needs of the citizen. But at the same time, then I deal with the rights part. Do we have the right to develop your property? So it's a tough one. So that's my thoughts. Thank you.
Yeah, for me, I'm a supporter of personal property rights. But I am also a supporter of smart growth. And since this is only a pause to take a look at how that smart growth plan may be for our city, I can support that since it's for a short period of time. If this was an indefinite amount of time, then my vote would be with Councilmember Carr. But since this is just for a short period of time, like my colleagues had said, it's a pause. To me, it's an opportunity to provide smart growth in our city. And I think that's extremely important. I even said to one of the youth council candidates this afternoon we were interviewing, just because you have growth, that doesn't mean it's good. Smart growth is what we want. And I think, do I think there's a need for car washes and storage facilities here in the city of Cape Coral? Absolutely. But that doesn't mean we have them all lined up on the same street. That doesn't mean that you put them all in one area. Dollar stores, we've all heard this about dollar stores. So does that mean you have a dollar store every quarter mile on one particular roadway, Cape Coral Parkway? But there's 2 or 3 that I know of on that particular roadway. Not saying we don't need dollar stores, but I think having them strategically placed throughout the city to help with our smart growth. And to me, if I was an individual developer, that I knew there was some restrictions on where I could put a particular facility, I would feel a little more comfortable spending the monies to build that facility because I know I didn't have competition opening up next door. So you could even look at it in that respect as well. So I think for me, I'm okay with the short pause. Let's take a look at it. Let's look at our land development code, see if we can do a better job. I think that's important, make sure we have smart growth in our city. It may be an inconvenience for some. It's a short period of time. I would hope staff would hit the ground running and making sure that we address the needs, have those discussions with council, get a good direction, do the study, I think is important, get all the information and then make a good informed decision. So I'm okay with the pause. Councilmember Steinke?
Yeah, thank you. And Councilmember Shepherd reminded me of one thing, and I did remember another. I want to thank staff in an effort to try to make this decision. I had been asking for some occupancy numbers on the current storage that we have. There was a challenge before about one of the whereases as far as how many square feet we currently have and what we already have that's permitted and whatnot. And just as early as Tuesday of this week, I heard back that we were able to pull 15 storage units throughout the city, and there was vacancy at every single one of them. So that certainly is a fact to consider. And the other is with the thought of, as this pause would take effect, we've all seen and implemented multi-use buildings where it's not where it's residences above businesses to meet the commercial needs, so that we have the doctors, the lawyers, those professionals that we need, and the commercial health care that we need. But then above that, there can be residences. Well, there are many, many examples across the country of commercial on the first level and then storage above instead of residences above. And so that's another thing that could be considered so that we can get the best of both worlds. And certainly to do that, the pause, if you would allow us to consider how to do that and how to encourage a multi-use building where the developer would get the storage that they want, but also commit that in that footprint some of the services that our citizens need as well. And I'm still undecided. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other discussion, Madam City Clerk, if you would call the roll and just remind my colleagues it was a motion for denial.
Hayden?
No.
Long?
No.
Shepherd?
No.
Steinke?
No.
Welsh?
No.
Parr?
Yes.
Cosden?
No.
Gunter?
No.
That's 1 aye, 7 nays. Motion to deny failed.
Is there any other,
Motion to approve?
Second.
any discussion? Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Hayden?
Aye.
Long?
Aye.
Shepherd?
Aye.
Steinke?
Aye.
Welsh?
Aye.
Parr?
No.
Cosden?
Aye.
Gunter?
Aye.
7 ayes, 1 nay. Motion carried.
Okay, we'll move on to the next ordinance, Ordinance 16-24. Madam City Clerk, please read the title.
Ordinance 16-24, an ordinance of the City of Cape Coral, Florida, relating to a moratorium on the acceptance of applications for and the issuance of permits for development of car wash facilities within all zoning districts in the City of Cape Coral, providing for exemptions, providing for the duration of the moratorium and method of processing applications and permits during, after, or prior to the effective date of the moratorium, providing a procedure to determine vested rights, appeals, and modification to vested development, providing for exhaustion of administrative remedies, providing for severability and an effective date.
I'll turn it over to staff.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Once again, for the record, Amy Yearsley with the City Planning Division. This is the second of the two moratorium ordinances. Staff did provide a presentation at the first public hearing. We won't be presenting it again today. It remains unchanged, but I'm available for any questions you may have.
Thank you. I now open up the second and final public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak? Ordinance 16-24, please come forward.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Kevin Besser, Director of Public Policy of the Royal Palm Coast Realtor Association. Again, I stand, and the realtors stand with private property owners and their abilities to build what they see fit in land that is zoned commercial. It is a commercial property. I will tell you, we do support smart growth in our city and in every city and in Lee County. I just wish there was a better way that we could do this. I would support land development code changes. I would support zoning changes. However, right now what we're talking about is a moratorium. A moratorium is a violation of these people's private property rights, and that is our issue. So, it's not very often that the two largest trade associations in the city both stand together and stand for private property rights owners. And again, we would love to work with the city on land development code changes, zoning changes, to make sure that things like this happen, to make sure our city is developing in a smart way. Thank you.
Joe Mazurkas, President of BJM Consulting. Here on behalf of multiple clients, all have non-residential property. All the comments I made on the prior ordinance stand for this ordinance. I want to make a couple different things. Number one, I want to remind you that going dirt to vertically integrated mixed-use multi-story buildings doesn't happen a lot. There are temporary uses that exist prior to. I want to remind you that a vertically integrated mixed use going in on downtown Cape Coral, the Cove on 47th, was the home for the first fully automated car wash in the city of Cape Coral. They get repurposed when the value's there, when the market requires it. Restrictions on certain sites to allow specific uses are the city government picking winners and losers for land use, for property owners. Is that what you want to do? I think not. It's bad legislation. I should deny it.
Donna Germain, President and CEO of the Chamber of Commerce of Cape Coral. Again, echoing my earlier comments in regards to Ordinance 16-24, the car wash moratorium. Chamber of Commerce and its Board of Directors are not in favor of the moratorium. We stand with public property rights, and we also support smart growth, but again, we do support our business owners' rights and our private property rights. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on Ordinance 16-24? Seeing none, public hearing's now closed. Is there a motion regarding Ordinance 16-24?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any council discussion? Councilmember Carr.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. Like I said, I have a different viewpoint on this particular ordinance as it relates to the last, but I would like, I don't know if it's possible to make I know that it is a pause, as we've been saying, but, can we shorten the duration from what is published, or do we just have to go with, it'll end once the changes have been made that we're all satisfied with? There's no way to change that tonight, correct, Mr. City Attorney?
You could change it.
Okay.
You could shorten it.
Pardon?
You could shorten it.
Okay.
If there's...
Two things. I do support this ordinance in concept. I do think there's an urgent need to put a pause on this particular development only because of the detriment to neighboring residential properties for this particular use. There was a particular one that was here when I was appointed at the end of a Gulf Access Canal on Santa Barbara, in which it was a commercially zoned parcel that there's now a car wash being constructed. Significant impact to the neighboring residential properties that are immediately adjacent to the canal and that car wash. And that's the example I've been using to make this decision, my decision about supporting this ordinance. I'm not comfortable with the year duration. I think the shortest we can make it, I think, is the best way to go forward to accomplish what we want to accomplish. I recognize staff is extremely busy and that there are other priorities, and I think we did discuss this a little bit in our meetings about the timeline. But I would rather support this with a shorter duration, if that's possible, but something that is, attainable by staff, that we can meet all the dates necessary to make some modification to either setbacks or location or buffering, which may be appropriate, is kind of what I'm hoping for in the future with regard to this pause for this particular type of development. So if possible, I think maybe the motion maker to consider shortening the duration based on staff input. If not, I will still support this ordinance based on the comments I just made, but I would feel more comfortable, and I think it'd be appropriate if we could shorten the duration, if it's at all possible. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess I'll jump in here. To me, I see this no different than the previous ordinance. I know we have some work to do. I think that year will come and go pretty quickly. So I can support the ordinance as written with the same timeline that was utilized for the previous ordinance. So I can support the motion as it's been made. Councilmember Welsh.
Yes, I just want to clarify with the city attorney, if this council decides that in 6 months from now we want to remove this, we can, correct?
Yes.
So at that point, we could shorten it if we feel that the work is done. And so I would hate to hinder staff from having the time to do it properly by saying you only have 6 months now instead of a year. So I'm going to support the year, knowing that we can make that change if the work gets done ahead of time. Thank you.
Mr. City Manager.
I just want to point out the duration of the moratorium in this ordinance is imposed and shall expire on January 17th, 2025.
That's less than a year.
I want to make sure, that may not be known. This one is.
Thank you.
Is not April of 2025.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing no other discussion, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Hayden?
Aye.
Long?
Aye.
Shepherd? Steinke?
Aye.
Welsh?
Aye.
Carr?
Aye.
Cosden?
Aye.
Gunter?
Aye.
8 ayes, motion carried.
Okay, we'll move on to ordinance 22-24. Madam City Clerk, please read the title.
Ordinance 22-24, an ordinance amending the City of Cape Coral, Florida, Ordinance 1-24, which amended Ordinance 70-23, which adopted the City of Cape Coral, Florida operating budget, revenues and expenditures, and capital budget for fiscal year 2024 by increasing the total revenues and expenditures by a total of $44,647,969, providing for severability and an effective date.
Good evening, Mr. Mason.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. Mark Mason, Financial Services Director. We're here for the second budget amendment for fiscal year 2024. This is governed by Florida Statute 166-241-3, and this recognizes council actions approved between December 2023 and through February 2024, as well as any personnel services, operating, or capital adjustments that occurred during those 3 months. Overall, the adjustment, as the city clerk read, was $44.6 million, increasing the budget to $1,193 million. The increase represents about 3.89% increase to the budget. This includes any previously approved items from December to February, which is, represents about 1.6 million or 3.6% of the increase. Other adjustments include 42 million, which I'll be going through here shortly, as well as personnel changes representing 1.42% of the increase. Previously approved items include 7 grants during that period of time, as well as a few adjustments to capital improvements such as the Bimini Basin mooring field, as well as the addition for a couple of fire vehicles for increases that occurred with those purchases. In addition, as we presented to the City Council with regard to the GEO bond projects and the additional funding necessary to complete those projects, $18 million of this proposal, this budget amendment reflects that. We're transferring out the entire balance of the FEMA reimbursement funds from the general fund to the GEO project fund, as well as the park impact fees for the remainder of the projects. This should take us through the end of for the final projects to include Tropicana Park for the GEO bond projects. In addition, we've set up a multi-year fund for police grants, and we're moving them from the police fund. This has no effect on the budget other than we're moving it from the general fund to special revenue funds. In addition, we're reducing a grant, an interlocal agreement, $150,000 for hurricane evacuation study. This is a joint project with the MPO, where the MPO is picking up half of it, we're picking up half of it. We originally budgeted the full cost of that at $300,000, and so we're removing $150,000 of that expenditure. In addition, we've recaptured from some funds on ship housing, as well as for both ship housing, as well as an increase in the grant funding from Hurricane Ian recovery. So we're transferring the $18.8 million into the Parks GEO bond fund. In effect, this represents closer to about a $36 million project, or it's $36 million of the fund, because we're taking out of one fund, putting in another fund that kind of double counts this, because of each one of our funds are self-balancing. In addition, we have some personnel changes. The City Council had approved adding four positions for fire operations. This actually codifies that by putting the actual budget into the system for those 4 additional positions. With regard to the yacht basin, we're reactivating a part-time employee to manage for the boat slips at Rosen Park. And for internal service fund for property management, we're converting several of the part-time positions to full-time positions and moving positions from parks that were custodial related into property management, so property management will have control of all the custodians within the city. And that is it. Here for any questions you have.
Thank you. I'll now open up public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on ordinance 22-24, please come forward. Seeing none, public hearing is now closed. Is there a motion regarding this ordinance?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Is there any council discussion? Councilmember Long?
Real quick, Mark, can you explain the bay doors in slide 7 for the fire department?
Slide 7. Yes, this is a retrofit bay doors for Station 3 and Station number 12. It came in at approximately $90,000 more than we originally identified for the budget.
Which we had was like what, 450?
Yeah, about 450, yes.
So that's for 2 stations?
It is.
So each one is
Well, it depends on the number of bay doors that we're dealing with. So each station has a different number of bays.
Have we, just out of curiosity, I guess, have we also, if I remember, that's going to be a recurring thing moving forward, have we talked about equipping the other stations moving forward with that? And is that, this increase, of course, is going to roll into the future purchases?
the request for future bay doors will be included in a budget, but that hasn't been finalized with the city manager's proposed budget.
I gotcha. I just had to talk bay doors. Thank you, Mark.
No worries. Thank you.
Maybe the deputy chief can tell us how many bay doors we have at Station 13 and 12.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Mike Russell, Acting Fire Chief. So I believe at Station 12, there are 6 bay doors, and at Station 3, there are only 3 bay doors. Station 3 kind of sits up on a hill on Everest Parkway, and we do not exit or enter the rear of that station. We only exit or enter the front of that station based upon its design and the way it accesses to Del Prado. These bay doors are also in Stations 13 and the design for Station 10, and as Mr. Mason mentioned, you'll see them in our future budget presentations as well. Stay by for any further questions.
So 9 bay doors, about $550,000, about $61,000 a door, I guess, is what we're talking.
Correct, sir.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Madam City Clerk, we have a motion, I believe, and a second on the floor. Could you call the roll, please?
Hayden?
Aye.
Long?
Aye.
Shepherd? Steinke?
Aye.
Welsh?
Aye.
Carr?
Aye.
Costin?
Aye.
Gunter?
Aye.
8 ayes, motion carried.
Thank you, Mr. Mason.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to ordinance 23-24. Madam City Clerk, please read the title.
Ordinance 23-24, an ordinance approving and granting to Lee County Electric Cooperative, Inc. a perpetual easement for a right-of-way to be used for the construction, operation, and maintenance of one or more underground electric distribution lines across property owned by the city that is the area of the Yellow Fever Creek Preserve, located at 3115 Del Prado Boulevard North, as more particularly described herein. Authorizing and directing the mayor to execute the easement. A copy of the easement is attached hereto and incorporated herein by reference, providing severability and an effective date.
Thank you. Ms. Andrews, good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members. Dawn Andrews with the Public Works Real Estate Division. I'm just here for any questions you may have about this ordinance.
Okay, we'll open up public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on ordinance 23-24, please come forward. Seeing none, public hearing is now closed. Do I have a motion regarding ordinance 23-24?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Did I hear a second from
Yeah,
Councilmember
I'm
Hayes?
losing my voice.
All right. Is there any council discussion? Seeing none, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Hayden?
Aye.
Long?
Aye.
Shepherd? Steinke?
Aye.
Welsh?
Aye.
Carr?
Aye.
Costin?
Aye.
Gunter?
Aye.
8 ayes, motion carried.
Okay, move on to ordinance 25-24. Madam City Clerk, please read the title.
Ordinance 25-24, an ordinance approving and granting to Lee County Electric Cooperative, Inc. a perpetual easement for a right-of-way to be used for the construction, operation, and maintenance of one or more underground electric distribution lines across property owned by the city that is located at 1020 Kismet Parkway West, as more particularly described herein. Authorizing and directing the mayor to execute the easement. A copy of the easement is attached hereto and incorporated herein by reference, providing severability and an effective date.
Turn it over to staff.
Just available for any questions you might have on this one as well.
Thank you. I now open up public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on ordinance 25-24, please come forward. Seeing none, public hearing is now closed. Do I have a motion regarding ordinance 25-24?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any council discussion? Seeing none, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Hayden?
Aye.
Long?
Aye.
Shepherd? Steinke?
Aye.
Welsh?
Aye.
Carr?
Aye.
Costin?
Aye.
Gunter?
Aye.
8 ayes, motion carried.
Okay,
Thank
we'll
you.
move on to ordinance 26-24. Madam City Clerk, please read title.
Ordinance 26-24, an ordinance amending the City of Cape Coral, Florida Code of Ordinances, Chapter 9, Health and Sanitation, Article 3, Disposition of Garbage, Section 9-73, Refuse Service to be provided by City Refuse Franchise Hauler, pertaining to the time to begin collection of refuse. In Chapter 12, Offenses and Miscellaneous Provisions, Article 2, Offenses creating nuisances, Section 12-22, Noise Control, pertaining to the exemption for city-approved refuse and recyclable waste collection, providing severability and an effective date.
Okay, thank you. I'll turn it over, Mr. City Manager.
It's just an introduction. If you have any questions, we have staff prepared to answer.
This is not an introduction.
I'm sorry, wrong one. This is moving the
I know
timeframe for...
you're still stuck on those bay doors, but we'll get you through.
This is moving the collection time an hour early, so my apologies.
Yeah, if I recall
I was looking
correctly-
at the wrong one on the agenda.
Yeah, if I recall correctly, the summer months, they want to move up to 5 a.m. instead of 6 a.m.
Yeah, so last year during the heat wave, we came before you and asked you, council, to move it an hour. We went back and looked at previous times, and it has never been objected to, so we're just codifying it now so that it can be done earlier.
Okay. I'll now open up public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on ordinance 26-24, please come forward. Seeing none, public hearing is now closed. Do I have a motion regarding ordinance 26-24?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Councilmember Long.
Just real quick, we can walk this back if it becomes an issue among residents in the future. You know, it hasn't been, just
You could
wanted to
always,
make sure.
you could always amend the ordinance if it does become problematic.
Awesome, thank you.
Seeing no other discussion, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Hayden.
Aye.
Long.
Aye.
Shepherd. Steinke.
Aye.
Welsh.
Aye.
Carr.
Aye.
Cosden.
Aye.
Gunter.
Aye.
8 ayes, motion carried.
Okay, move on to ordinance 28-24. Madam City Clerk, please read the title.
Ordinance 28-24, an ordinance of the City of Cape Coral, Florida, repealing Ordinance 79-18, approving the interlocal agreement between the City of Cape Coral, a Florida municipal corporation, and Lee County, a political subdivision of the state of Florida, regarding rental areas within city fire stations to house emergency vehicles and personnel, authorizing the mayor to execute the interlocal agreement, providing an effective date.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Mike Russell, Acting Fire Chief again. No bay doors this time, but this does clarify. This is a renewal of a long-standing agreement with Lee County for their ambulance service to house in our fire stations. This agreement was extensively worked on with many members of staff and many members of the Lee County staff. It provides some improvements to operational considerations. It increases the service level in the city. It allows us to have some annual meetings with EMS to clarify our service delivery expectations. And additionally, it has a fuel component in it where they would be allowed to fuel city ambulances at city fuel stations, obviously for exchanging cost for that. And it provides the lease payment information, what they would pay us on a quarterly basis. And I'll stand by for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. City Attorney.
And just to provide clarification, this does have the effect of repealing ordinance 79-18. I want everyone to understand that. The reason for that repeal is because now we're going into an interlocal agreement. So I want that to be clear for the record.
And also, I just wanted to make a comment. This is as a result of the ongoing discussions that we had with Lee County. I know myself, Chief Lamb, and I believe the city manager had several meetings. Actually, this started when our previous city manager here was here. This is as a result trying to get additional ambulance service to the county, to the city, and have them strategically mobilized throughout the city. And then, like Chief Russell had mentioned, being able to utilize our gas and be reimbursed from there. So this is a result of many meetings with staff, just trying to better provide a service for EMS service here for the residents of our city. With that being said, I'll open up public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on ordinance 28-24, please come forward. Seeing none, public hearing is now closed. Do we have a motion regarding ordinance 28-24?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Is there any council discussion? Councilmember Carr.
Just a quick question, Chief. Did it have a net result of an increase in trucks in the Cape provided by EMS, or?
Correct. There was an increase in one this year, and then a commitment to continue to evaluate the service level and then increase into the future years. There was not a commitment of a specific number in the future years, just a commitment to continue to explore the service level expectations on an annual basis. And to maybe piggyback on something the mayor had mentioned, is I did have a meeting with Director Avis on an unrelated topic today, and he expressed his gratitude in the ability for the county and the city to work together on issues and how amicable the whole process was. And he just wanted, he was going to come today, but wasn't able to, but he wanted to express his gratitude for the ability to work together.
Excellent, thank you.
Mr. City Manager.
Yeah, I want to expand on that a little more. So in addition to the total count increasing by one, also the availability or the hours that they're in the city increases by them utilizing the fuel depot at the stations. Otherwise, all of these assets were leaving the city of Cape Coral to go to unincorporated Lee County fueling depots to get fuel and then returning back to the city. So every time on the shifts that they're refueling at the station, they're remaining in the city for enhanced emergency response time. So not only did we gain a +1, we also gained the availability of those that were already here.
Yeah, in future, and further talks, our goal was try to get at least 10 EMS personnel stationed here within the city. I know the county's doing a 5-year plan now. They understand what our concerns are, and as we all know, our city's growing, our fire department's growing. We want to make sure that EMS has grown in parallel with us. They recognize the concern. And they will, the county commission will be having future discussions on implementing additional units here in the Cape. Did we have a motion, Madam City Clerk? We did?
Yeah.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, could you call the roll, please?
Hayden.
Aye.
Long.
Aye.
Shepherd. Steinke.
Aye.
Welsh.
Aye.
Farr.
Aye.
Cosden.
Aye.
Gunter.
Aye.
8 ayes, motion carried.
Thank you. We'll move on to ordinance 29-24. Madam City Clerk, please read the title.
Ordinance 29-24, an ordinance of the City of Cape Coral, Florida, amending Ordinance 46-23 to accelerate and revise the effective date of Ordinance 46-23 from December 1st, 2024 to June 1st, 2024 regarding irrigation systems, and by amending the City of Cape Coral, Florida Code of Ordinances, Chapter 19, Water and Sewer Utilities, Article 7, Water Management, by amending Section 19-90.6, completion of installation or substantial modification, Section 19-90.8, alternative compliance, and Section 19-94, penalties, regarding irrigation systems and penalties for violations, providing severability and an effective date.
Thank you. I'll turn it over to staff. Mr. Pearson.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Jeff Pearson, Utilities Director. At the February 14th, 2024 Committee of the Whole meeting, we discussed some potential water conservation measures. There were a few items that we reached a consensus on, one of which was accelerating the existing ordinance from December 1st start date to potentially soon as possible, which for staff it would be June 1st, 2024. Also, during discussions in the development of the ordinance, we discussed adding a $500 cash rebate for property owners who meet the minimum of 70% or greater system efficiency, who install smart controllers and soil sensors would potentially qualify for that. That's additionally in the ordinance update. We also changed the responsible person in Section 19-90.8 from the Utilities Director to DSD Director for making decisions on alternative compliance. Under Section 19-94 penalties, We added language that the violation within a 12-month period would be subject to the following penalties. We just added that as a clarification that it would be within a 12-month period rather than, an infinite amount of time, because it wasn't clarified in the previous ordinance. Also, in the same section, we kept the first violation would be no fine. Second violation would increase from $100 to $200. Third violation would increase from $200 to a $350 fine. And the fourth and subsequent violations would increase from $400 to $500. So in a nutshell, those are the additions to the ordinance. And I stand by for any questions you may have.
Thank you. I now open up public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on ordinance 29-24, please come forward.
Good evening. I'm Eric Loser, with the president of the CCCIA and president of PCC Tile. So for some background, the CCCIA was in favor of ordinance 46-23, the original ordinance. We understand the requirement and the need. On the other hand, with moving this timeline up, it does incur additional costs to builders who've already provided their customers with a pricing structure. This is going to cause escalations, and we understand that we don't see the other side of the equation of how the requirement for water has changed. But I just want to remind you, even though you have a lot of experience with this as a council, this is going to cause additional costs to homeowners trying to build new homes and other construction. Also, the education aspect of it, we had a meeting about a month and a half, maybe 2 months ago, with the city manager and staff, outlining our request for education for the industry on this. Obviously, there's been some more pressing events that have come up that have required a lot of the city's time. We don't feel like that education has occurred. So we don't feel like the rollout will be particularly smooth. That being said, we understand that the aspect with FEMA has been all encompassing. Time suck, but we don't feel like this is situated for success. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on this during public hearing on ordinance 29-24? Seeing none, public hearing is now closed. Is there a motion regarding ordinance 29-24?
Motion to approve.
Second.
And I open the floor up. Councilmember Hayden.
Yeah, Jeff, will you clarify that moving up the start time for this particular ordinance is just for that specific area north of Pine Island Road? This isn't for the entire city. This became an issue a few weeks ago, and the city attorney amended or changed that ordinance. So we're just talking specifically about the area that we addressed that might be impacted because of shortages in the reservoir. And you look confused.
No, sir. This ordinance is covering the entire city.
Now, let me clarify that. I apologize. Yes, and going back and having the committee of the whole, we reviewed it. There's an exhibit that's attached to this. The exhibit delineates the provisions of where this ordinance will become effective as of June 1. That is north of Pine Island Road. It is east of Nelson Road North. It is south of Gator Slough Canal. And then the other boundary is, it's northeast 24th Avenue, I believe, and then Garden Boulevard. So that is an exhibit that is delineated within there in the ordinance itself.
Yeah, because I don't want the CCCIA or the city to be confused that this is going into effect for the entire city, because it's not. Those meetings are still planned, okay? Nothing's changed from that December 1st. That's why it was important that we were specific on what area we were talking about, and that's what the discussion revolved around during the COW, was because of water shortages, possible water shortages up north, and what the South Florida Water Management District is doing. And if there's some confusion in here You know, we don't appear to be in a good place, and this bothers me a little bit.
I apologize for the confusion. Yeah, it's just for that northeast area where we're having the water shortage.
Right.
Until December 1st, and then it's the entire city.
That's the entire city. Okay.
Yeah, I apologize.
Okay, I just want to make sure everybody's clear on that because it's obviously caused some confusion with the building industry, who we worked really hard with for 2 years to come to an agreement on that. And you know, this was to address things that we could do now to address that water shortage in that specific area and help with water levels in the Mid-Hawthorne aquifer.
Matthew Grambo, Interim Development Services Director. So as encapsulated in this ordinance tonight, there's been a kind of a passing of the torch from the Utilities Department to the Development Services Department, reflected in changing the director who will be looking over at the alternative compliance measures. So I've been working with the attorney's office, and apologies for any confusion. We do have a full day, a near full day education session scheduled for April 29th at this point. We have an NTI drafted that's ready to go out this week with details on how we will be implementing the ordinance and reviewing the revised plans into the Development Services Department. As the ordinance states, the building division will be charged with reviewing the plans and enforcing much of this ordinance. And so we've been taking over and working on preparing for any implementation date.
Okay, thanks, Matt. And Jeff, I'm assuming because of the $500 rebate that will be incorporated into the remainder of the city once it takes effect citywide?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thanks, Mayor.
Mr. City Manager?
It was just clarified. I was going to indicate that we had made a shift in administration, and so this was picked up by Matt. And I was going to also ask him to clarify for the industry what we've done as far as the education and the notification, that it was all escalated, and we're prepared to assist them with compliance.
Councilmember Carr.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Had some of the same concerns as Councilmember Hayden with regard to the location of this being rolled out into a very restricted area. It's kind of a good test case, I think, to see how it's going to go when we do roll it out for the rest of the city. So if we have any problems, we can address them on a smaller scale and then fix it on a larger scale. I do have concern about having, to clarify, is the fine amount increase also part of this discussion, or just the water irrigation portion of it?
The penalty fine amount is also being increased as part of this, which is what was agreed upon during the committee of the whole meeting.
Okay. I think it's easier to, get the information out to the industry. We have, they're permitted jobs that are going to be able to be identified and educated upon. And I'm having some concern about the education of the public in a very restricted area about an increase in fines before it's rolled out to the rest of the city. Is there any way at this point to remove that portion of this tonight, or? I think it's going to be difficult to educate the public properly that their particular house has an increase in fine, however the guy down the street does not. I think that may create confusion and, contention moving forward with regard to enforcement of the ordinance, with regard to use, not installation of a new system.
So to answer your question, you could certainly modify the penalty provision or eliminate it. That is the ability, you have the ability to do that. That wouldn't run afoul of us having to go back for an introduction.
I would ask that the motion maker consider leaving the enforcement side with the increase in fines until we roll it out to the entire city. I think it'd be very difficult to get the message out properly to that limited area for the general public. I think we can do a good job of it with the industry and to the CCCIA and others to get the contractors up to speed on what's necessary to comply with this ordinance. But the typical homeowner using the watering system, I think it would be much more difficult to do it in a confined area, be too much confusion. So I would ask that the motion maker consider modifying the ordinance to not include the increase in fines at this time and wait till we roll it out for the rest of the city.
Yeah, I guess I look at it a little differently. Two things that's a little concerning for me is the educational component as well. And Matt, I don't know if any of my colleagues picked it up. You used a terminology, NTI, which is notice to the industry. And you said you were going to be putting that out this week?
Correct. We were just waiting council action on this item because we need to, in the NTI, have a date certain.
My other question, I know you and I have had a discussion on other issues. My understanding that your department's policy on notice to the industry, it's at least a 30-day process. So if we implement this today, it starts today. Is that correct? Or is there a...
No, it would be June 1st.
June 1st.
So,
Is that, yeah, okay. The other concern that I have, you know, if you look at the data that we've been getting on a weekly basis, and thank you, Jeff, for providing that to council, we've only fluctuated about 1 foot. And, you know, it's not that drastic of a change over the last 2 months, which we were in the middle of dry season, and we still only had about a 1 foot fluctuation. On 2/5/24, we had 85.45, and on 4/8, we had 86.84 in a variety of places, but it didn't fluctuate that much. Going into dry season, going into rainy season, we know it's going to help with this, only because, you know, we'll be getting more precipitation. So for me, I'm still struggling with the need. To me, the data doesn't show me the need when we only have that 1 foot fluctuation. And then knowing that we're going into rainy season as well. Also, we haven't provided any type of educational component to the community. We should have been doing that before this was even brought before us, if that was going to be the direction. I just don't know how much educational component between now and June 1st. You know, is that going to be enough? How are we going to do that educational component? You know, so there's some of the things that I'm struggling with. You know, do we have a plan in place, Mr. City Manager? How are we going to do this educational component?
We do have a full communications plan and an educational session. I believe we're having workshops and some printed materials. I understand the concern about the timeliness, but it would have been premature for us to be training the industry on something that you all haven't supported yet.
I understand.
And just for a point of clarification, if and when you all pass an ordinance or a resolution, it will supersede any administrative policy we had. So if we have a 30-day, but you all want to implement something tomorrow, then my administrative policy would not stand up to that. So just for future thoughts.
Okay. Councilmember Stunkey.
Thank you. It sounds like we can meet that 30-day expectation at this point, if it was a June 1 start. 30 days in the construction industry isn't a whole lot. It may sound like a lot, but you got a lot of people that there's a lot happening downstream that if it gets changed today, you know, can affect them. And I know we talked about this with concern for how it affects the budgets and making it more costly. I know we made some type of an estimate of where around this what the financial effect on this would be. Do you recollect what that is? I don't.
The difference between putting in just like a regular system versus one that meets the baseline?
Yes.
Yeah, it really depends on the size of the property and the specific site, so it's really hard to put a number on that. But I would imagine it would range anywhere, you know, between $1,500 to $500. It just really depends on the specific site and what they're doing on that site. Now, if they go with a smart system, with the smart controller, the soil sensors, it's going to cost a little more to meet that and to qualify for the $500 rebate and potentially a variance from the watering restrictions. So, but that would be for, you know, once it it would not be for this area because we're under the South Florida Water Management District's 1 day a week watering. But for the rest of the city, once it goes into effect December 1st, you know, it would be open it up for everyone to qualify for that.
Okay, thanks. And I had the same thoughts that the mayor shared with regard to watching those weekly reports that you've been sharing with us. And certainly when this first came up as an additional measure that we could take with regard to Southwest Florida and their concern for us and what we were going to do about it, it would appear that we're doing okay. Knock on wood. And with the rainy season coming, it would seem like everything's going to move in the other direction. I'm not so sure in this case that the juice is worth the squeeze, that we make it a little more restrictive on that, you know, polygon that we've got versus the whole city, than to implement it citywide, just as we thought. Give a little more time for the education. Certainly allow the homes that are being built to go one way or the other. They can know it's coming, and they can know that they could get a benefit if they were to put in the new system, but it would be optional for them at this point. And then certainly for those people that would be getting their, you know, COs in January of next year, or actually in December of this year after December 1st, they should have already gotten that news already. So with what has happened with the water that we have received, you know, through natural sources and through other saving measures that we've taken, with the fact that it could cause concern to the building industry and to the citizens that their homes are being built for them, I may be changing my tune at this point.
Councilmember Hayden.
Yeah, I think another thing to consider, yeah, the aquifer level looks okay now, but a reminder that we had an extremely dry summer last year, which put us in the position that we're in now. We didn't get the rain. It's tough to sometimes roll the dice and predict what may or may not happen. And the South Florida Water Management District may not be looking at it as, okay, the aquifer is okay. Now the city's pulling back on water conservation efforts they were looking at to help that aquifer in the future. So I think that has to be considered. I don't know that we want to give the South Florida Water Management District any more ammunition to look at imposing, and the word's been used here tonight, a moratorium on any building up there, because the Cape isn't doing what they said they were going to do and look at water conservation efforts, whether it be this, whether it be the city utility project. I think they're going to be looking for reasons why and feel secure and comfortable with what the city's doing, beyond just thinking up here that, well, the aquifer looks okay. You know, they might have a different point of view and different reasoning on this. So yeah, it may look like it makes sense now to, well, the aquifer's okay, but, and Jeff, I don't know, has the South Florida Water Management District said anything recently, sent a letter that said, okay, the aquifer levels look good, you don't have to look at conservation efforts? I would doubt they would ever say that. I'm assuming they're reacting to what we had talked about and we're planning to do, rather than us sitting up here thinking that everything's okay with the aquifer.
It's a great question, Councilmember Hayden. I can tell you that this past dry season has been like no other. I've been here 13 years. Our records go back beyond that, and I can tell you I've looked at those trends. We keep a canal trend chart, and this year we're off the charts. We've never been in the position that we're in right now because of those canal levels, and it's a direct correlation with the rainfall. So we've been very fortunate this year. We've had a very rainy, dry season, and the Water Management District, I've informed them of this. I even asked them to come to this meeting in case the council had any questions. And they couldn't make it, but they said they were very excited about this ordinance and that we're doing more than anyone else. And I think that's helping us with the district to not go to the level that they did with Lee County, far east Lee County, where you can only drill a well for domestic use. You can't even drill a well for irrigation.
Okay. Thanks, Jeff.
Jeff, have we gotten any letters from South Florida Water Management that they were alarmed by the same day? They're getting the data that we're getting the data from them, actually.
Yes, sir.
Have you gotten any correspondences since February 5th of they're alarmed with the levels that they are now? Any additional? I know we had some previously, but I'm talking about since February 5th.
Not really. They're very happy that we're kind of maintaining the status quo with the levels. However, they're cautiously optimistic, and they anticipate that the levels are going to go down. Usually April is our driest month of the year going into May. So we should start seeing those weekly reports that I send City Council. You're going to start seeing that dropping because we haven't really had any appreciable rainfall. That appreciable rainfall during the prior months has helped us to maintain within that foot variance that you mentioned, Mayor.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, I try to base all my decisions on the data and the science. So when you look at this, just to give you an example, on 4/1, there was a level of 87.02, and a week later it was 86.84. Not much of a difference, but it was an improvement. And even though this is the driest month, there was a slight improvement from one week over the other. I just don't see the level of concern or the alarm going off for me personally with the data that we've been provided over the last 2 months. So for me, my vote will be for denial for this particular ordinance, only because the data doesn't tell me that there's an alarm here. If the data showed something else where I thought, hey, we're really keep going down and down, I'd have a whole different opinion. I would say, whether it passes or not, that we still need to move forward with the educational component. If by chance it does not pass, then I think we need to start informing the community, hey, it's coming. It may, and we are monitoring the situation. If we see a turn for the worst, then the city council could implement something quite quickly. But for me, the data doesn't show me that at this point. If it did, I would be in favor of it, but it doesn't.
If I may, Mayor, when you see the higher number, the 86, that means it's the level's going down, not up. It's like the opposite.
Okay.
Just for clarification.
Thank you. I'm going to go to Councilmember Long first, since he hasn't spoken, then I'll go to you. Is that an old one? Okay. Councilmember Long.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Real briefly, to the mayor's point, he talks about making decisions on the data and the science, and I appreciate and respect that. But for me, I can only see a limited picture of what we're looking at here. I don't mean to put you in a difficult position, but someone that deals with data and science for a living, I would defer to you, I guess, personally, on what your opinion would be about whether you think that this would be a worthwhile venture to move forward with proceeding with regards to all the background information that we've already discussed, aquifer levels and the historic dry season, et cetera.
I believe we should do everything we can and demonstrate to the Water Management District that we're committed to water conservation, so they don't impose stricter restrictions on us than what they already have.
Got it. Thank you, Jeff.
Okay, seeing no other discussion, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Hayden?
Aye.
Long?
Aye.
Shepherd? Steinke?
Nay.
Welsh?
Aye.
Carr?
No.
Costin?
Aye.
Gunter?
No.
That's 5 ayes, 3 nays, motion carried.
Okay, move on to item 10C, introductions. We have ordinance 20-24. Madam City Clerk, please read the title, set the first public hearing date.
Ordinance 20-24. An ordinance amending the City of Cape Coral, Florida Land Development Code, Article 4, Zoning Districts, Chapter 1, General Provisions, Table 4.1.6, Use Table, regarding social services, arcade, commercial recreation, indoor, commercial recreation, outdoor, commercial parking lot or garage, marine fuel pump, craft brewery, distillery, winery, restaurant, no drive-through, restaurant, drive-through, distribution center, automotive towing establishment, heliport, helistop, and live workspace uses. By amending Article 4, Zoning Districts, Chapter 2, specific regulations by district regarding marine fuel pump and craft brewery, distillery, winery uses, amending Article 5, Development Standards, Chapter 10, specific use regulations regarding marine fuel pumps, and by amending Article 11, Definitions, Chapter 1, General Provisions, Section 11.2, Definitions, regarding amusement games or machines, arcades, automotive towing establishments, community centers, distribution centers, junkyards, live workspaces or live workspaces, marine fuel pumps, professional services, social services, solid waste transfer stations and yards, providing severability and an effective date. The first public hearing will be May 1st, 2024.
Any discussion by staff or council? Councilmember Welsh.
Yes, when I was sitting through planning and zoning, I had asked this question about the word arcade and if that meant like those gaming arcades that we had in the city for quite a long time. Brought it up to the city attorney, and when this comes to, I'm probably going to ask to amend it to remove the word arcade from this, because I haven't really talked to the police chief yet, but I do plan on that to see what kind of crime was around when those arcades were prevalent, and when they popped up in every corner, and then it seemed that they went away when we realized that they weren't allowed in our code. So this is the first reading. We have a second reading, and then it would come to a vote. Mr. City Attorney, how many more times is this?
So this is the first reading of the ordinance, and I would love to know whether or not there is at least consensus regarding either the continued inclusion or its removal. If it's a removal, then I would love to be able to confirm that you all want that removed, in which case 2 weeks from now it'll be reintroduced with that removed. But I don't want to, because it's in the title, if we wait the 2 weeks and then there's a determination to be made, I'd be concerned that we would have to then introduce it again. So that's why I'd rather get that out right now and then just go to a reintroduction 2 weeks from now.
So then I guess my ask or my comments is, does anyone else share that same feeling that we could get this passed through, take care of the boat fueling and all the other great things that are in this ordinance, but maybe bring it back without the word arcade, and then potentially we could workshop that if we decide to later?
I guess for me, council member, that I had that same concern, so I think removing arcade, I would agree with you, and so for the future, I guess presentations when they come forward, if we can remove that, I would be in support of that.
Okay.
Councilmember Steinke.
Okay. For me, it's a definition issue.
It's a use issue.
The word arcade can mean different things to different people, and there are certain components of the arcade that we're talking about that cause the issue. I'm sure we've all, what's the place in Fort Myers? Dave's. Dave and Buster's. Well, that's an arcade. That's not one of the arcades we're concerned about. So for me, it's more around that the word arcade is very general, and I think our concern is around a specific genre of arcades, so maybe it's a matter of defining the arcade we're talking about. I think all of us are on the same page, it's just the generality of arcade, I think, is what's causing the problem.
The arcade that's identified here, while it is defined, you're talking about the distinction between a game of chance versus a game of skill. One of which is legal, one of which is illegal under state law. So what this has the operative legal effect of doing is creating uses, legalizing a use that could arguably be illegal depending on whether it's a game of skill or a game of chance, which I have litigated before and I've taken enforcement action. So my recommendation, based upon me dealing with this for the past 20 some odd years, these are arcades where they're essentially gambling. My recommendation is if there's consensus of the council, I would remove that and then reintroduce it, because the Dave & Buster's you're referring is not going to ever be encapsulated within this. Or your Chuck E. Cheese, if Chuck E. Cheese still exists.
So what would one of those entities be considered?
Well, they're restaurants, right? They're all tied to a restaurant.
Yeah, the restaurant would probably be the ancillary use, though, in that manner, I would argue.
Ancillary or primary?
No, ancillary. I would imagine the primary source of revenue for those is the games.
Is the games.
Correct.
And the distinction with them is a game of skill versus a game of chance. And of course, the remuneration. Remember, you get the ticket, right?
I get it. I'm just saying within our table then, what does a Dave & Buster's, what do they be called?
You mean for under our use, where would we put them? Well, I'd have to, I don't know if Amy's here as to where it is specifically they'd be called, but for the question is whether or not it's truly an arcade where it's a game of skill versus a game of chance.
Okay, well, so for me, the game of chance arcade, that's what we want to eliminate.
Right, game of chance,
Illegal.
they're illegal, correct. It's gotta have, that's where your Dave &
So
Buster's.
for us to be able to do that and maintain a game of skill establishment, which other people refer to as an arcade, somehow, in my opinion, we gotta make that happen. And that's where I stand on it. So if we gotta pull it out now and figure that out, some time else, that's fine. But I really think that's the problem, is we want to get rid of the illegal part of it, but allow the legal part of an arcade.
And that's something that could be crafted in the future, but I would not, my recommendation is not creating a venue by way of which you provide someone a legal use of something that ultimately will create a vested right if it exists, and then we have to deal with that in the back end. So if your concern is to have the land development code identify that specific type of use where it is legal, because they're playing a game of skill, then that's something that can be developed moving forward. But I would recommend not doing that right now, because it will be exploited in a negative fashion. At least my experience, that's what I have seen, that they're exploited in a negative fashion.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Long.
Yeah, I was hoping to clarify this by approaching it from a different angle. What can maybe there's a reason from staff's perspective why this was included in the ordinance? Does that maybe help understand why we would have put that in there? I see Struvy's coming up here to maybe provide some insight.
Good evening, Council. For the record, Mike Struvey, Planning Team Coordinator with the Planning Division. Just to give you a little context, Commissioner Long, along with some of the other council members, this use was allowed prior to or prior to the latter half of 2019. It was inadvertently eliminated when the city transitioned from the former land use and development regulations to the land development code. And that use, and probably, or potentially another use or two,
was inadvertently eliminated because we changed our classification scheme and how we classify uses. We used to use the old NAICS system, and that was a old, really antiquated system that was developed for measuring economic activity at the federal level. We now use a system that is much more intuitive and more aligned with assessing land use impacts associated with different types of uses. The reason that we brought this back was not so much that this was the critical use of 7 or 8 that we're recommending for incorporation, but more out of recognition and to inform you that this was inadvertently dropped. We wanted you to be aware of that and to allow you to consider adding this back in if you wanted to the Land Development Code. One thing that we did do when we reclassified this use explicitly as an arcade is we provided a definition of the term, which was lacking before, which the city attorney referred to, and it is consistent with how Florida statutes defines arcades. The other thing we did too, since it was lumped in with a variety of other uses previously, was that we brought it back, but we restricted this use more narrowly than what it was allowed previously. So I hope that provides you a little bit of context of why we did this, and if you have any further questions, I'll be glad to address them.
I appreciate that. So it's a clerical error, apparently, for lack of having to go into that. And so are they now non-conforming uses? Is it
They are legal non-conforming uses, and to my knowledge, we have not allowed any new arcade uses since the latter half of 2019.
Understood. And did I understand correctly that you said as part of this that there was going to be a definition that would have...
There is a definition that is proposed for this particular use. Again, it is congruent with how the Florida General Assembly defines these uses. And in fact, we refer to that specific definition in our proposed definition section.
That becomes problematic. I'm getting there. I think Mr. City Attorney is now we're putting the burden on front desk staff theoretically to make a legal assumption as to the use of an arcade that the state has been struggling with for about 15 years. So you referenced, which is all that you are able to do, is that you have incorporated the reference to the statute. The problem is, from a state perspective, that the statute is fundamentally flawed. I think that's what's led to the proliferation of these arcades throughout the entire state, and frankly, they've plagued cities all throughout the state. So I think for that reason, I don't know that I would agree with Councilmember Welch that for whatever reason, however we got here, that now that it's been brought to my attention, I would rather not go into that, because I appreciate and understand the city attorney trying to delineate how you can go about doing that, but frankly, no city has to date found the answer to that. I think he was alluding to that when he got into some litigation with it. There is no answer. You know, you could say that it's an amusement machine. In fact, you can register with the Department of Revenue for amusement certificates for these machines. Call it an internet cafe and then hook it up, and that's one way around it. And so we can't make that determination at the desk or anywhere, frankly, in the city. So by doing this, we would inadvertently be allowing that to become a conforming use again. So I would support taking it out and I guess re-introing it. Thank you.
I guess so we can give the city attorney the direction that he's looking for. I think we'll just go down the line. We'll start with Councilmember Cosden. And since we've had this discussion, do you want to leave arcade in or out? I think that'll give...
And you could vote on this. Just because it is an introduction, you certainly can take a vote on it removing arcade and the definition from that. That is perfectly permissible.
Let's go down and see what the consensus is to start with.
It would be to remove it.
I'd say remove it.
Remove.
Remove.
Yeah, take it out.
Remove. So I'll reintroduce it in 2 weeks with that removed from the ordinance.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sounds good. All right, Madam City Clerk, where am I at?
Number 2.
24 now.
2124. Okay, Madam City Clerk, please read title, set the public hearing date.
Ordinance 21-24, an ordinance amending the City of Cape Coral, Florida Land Development Code, Article 6, Parking, Chapter 1, Parking, loading, and driveway requirements. Section 6.1.8, miscellaneous parking requirements regarding supplemental parking requirements within the South Cape District, providing severability and an effective date. The public hearing will be May 1st, 2024.
Any discussion by staff or council? Seeing none, we'll move on to ordinance 27-24. Madam City Clerk, please read title, set the public hearing date for transmittal.
Ordinance 27-24, an ordinance amending the comprehensive plan of the City of Cape Coral, Florida by amending Policy 1.15 of the Future Land Use Element by creating the Mixed Use 10 Future Land Use Map Classification, providing for severability and an effective date. The public hearing for transmittal will be on May 1st, 2024.
Any discussion by staff or council? Seeing none, Madam City Clerk, please, we'll move on to ordinance 31-24. Please read the title, set the public hearing date.
Ordinance 31-24, an ordinance of the Mayor and City Council of the City of Cape Coral, Florida, amending Ordinance 56-07 of the City of Cape Coral, Florida, which was initially adopted pursuant to Ordinance 23-04 on February 24th, 2004, which directly established and authorized the financial borrowing by the City of Cape Coral, Florida pursuant to its commercial paper program, decreasing the aggregate principal amount of commercial paper obligations that may be outstanding under the city's commercial paper program, which shall be identified by a one-time reduction from $250 million to $150 million and providing an effective date. The public hearing will be May 1st, 2024.
Any discussion by staff or council? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 11, reports. Councilmember Shepherd, report. No. Councilmember Steinke.
Thank you. Since we were together last on the 4th, I met with 3 of our state reps in Naples regarding this past session, the decisions and how they'll impact us, and as well as other items that will be considered for next session. On the 9th, I spoke at the Everest Neighborhood Association meeting. Thank you to staff, specifically Melissa Mickey, for being there with me to represent staff at that meeting. On the 11th, I was attended the Tourist Development Council meeting, represented us there. Our Parks and Recs Director, Joe, did a great job representing Yellow Fever Creek as we're looking for funding from the TDC to assist us in the Yellow Fever Creek production. And then on the 11th, I attended both the statewide Affordable Housing Advisory Committee workshop at the state level, representing our city in our region, as well as our local AHAC meeting we had as well. And Amy Yearsley did a great job leading that group as well. That's it for me.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Welsh.
No report.
Councilmember Carr.
No report.
Councilmember Cosden.
Yeah, one thing. You may have noticed downstairs the fountain is blue this month, and that's because it is Autism Awareness Month. And I just wanted to announce that to the world. As a mother of a child with autism, it's an important cause for me, and I'm proud that as a city we're recognizing that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Hayden.
Yeah, one thing, I had noticed when I had started attending the Horizon Council meetings that the agenda had been the same for several years and focused mainly on what was happening at the county level with the commissioner giving a report what was happening in their economic development office. So I had made the suggestion that they start including municipalities in their report so we could update what was happening in our cities. So this past meeting, they changed the agenda, and now they'll be rotating the municipalities so we have an opportunity to talk about what's happening with our economic development or what other issues that are occurring in our cities. And our economic development manager, Sharon Woodbury, was also there to add some information on that. So I think it's a positive change for the Horizon Council and puts it on a better pathway that we can all share information.
Okay, sounds great. Councilmember Long.
No report.
Mine, real quickly, on April 4th, attended a National Flood Insurance Program and Community Rating System meeting. On 4/11, I attended a joint meeting with local municipalities and county official regarding the FEMA issue. Also, on the 16th, which was yesterday, participated in the telephonic call with Senator Rick Scott's office, again discussing more the FEMA issue. Also yesterday, I participated in a Zoom meeting with the Florida League of Cities Board of Directors. One thing I wanted to ask council tonight is next week, as a member of the executive board of the Florida League of Cities, I will be attending the Southern Municipal Conference meeting from April 23rd to April 26th, and I'm requesting to participate remotely in next week's Committee of the Whole meeting. I'll be flying out on Tuesday, but I will participate in our Committee of the Whole meeting in its entirety, as long as council approves that. So just want to make sure there was no issues.
As long as Councilmember Long doesn't bring up bay doors and.
No promises. I get to take my liberties with the agenda, then I can't promise that.
All right.
All right. Did I hear a question?
I was just going to, I think you just clarified it by accident. I was going to just say, does that mean that the mayor pro tem would run the meeting, but you would
Yes, sir.
participate? Okay, thank you. I
Yep.
think it's just more efficient.
And I know
based on-
he's looking forward to that.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
All right, that's all I have, Mr. City Attorney.
Yes, briefly, just, and I know I've mentioned it before, I'm anticipating the proposed recommended order to the administrative law judge will happen on the 24th. We are still on schedule for that. I have not heard any requests for delay. So as of next Wednesday, which I know will be in a meeting that's not a regular meeting, the moment I have that proposed recommended order, I will be remitting it to you. That's
Thank
all I
you.
have.
Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just have one. The city of Cape Coral is hosting a citywide Earth Day cleanup event Saturday, April 20th from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. And we are just looking for the community to go around the city and help clean up and celebrate Earth Day. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Item 13, time and place of future meeting. We have a committee of the whole scheduled for Wednesday, April 24th, 2024 at 9 a.m. here in council chambers. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting adjourned.